One more pair of hands won't do much good. Ah, the white cloaks have bitten a mouthful of leather if they think they can push two rivers folk around. They know my name, Perrin said softly. His gaze swung to where his axe hung on the wall, the belt tied around the haft and the wall hook. Or maybe it was his hammer he was staring at, standing propped against the wall beneath the axe. Matt could not be sure. They can find my family. As for why, they have their reasons, Matt, just as I have mine. Who can say who has the better? Burn me, Perrin. Burn me. I want to See? I can't even say it now. Like my head knows I'll do it if I say it. I can't even get it out in my mind. Different paths. We've been sent down different paths before. Different paths be blooded, Matt grunted. I'd had all I want of Rand and Aes Sedai shoving me down their bloody paths. I want to go where I want for a change, do what I want. He turned for the door, but Perrin's voice halted him. I hope your path is a happy one, Matt. The light send you pretty girls and fools who want to gamble. Oh, burn me, Perrin. The light send you what you want, too. I expect it will. He did not sound happy at the prospect. Would you tell my Dar I'm all right? And my mother? She always did worry and look after my sisters. They used to spy on me and tell Mother everything, but I wouldn't want anything to happen to them. I promise, Matt. Closing the door behind him, Matt wandered down the hallways aimlessly. His sisters, Eldrin and Bodwin, had always been ready to run, shouting, "Mama, Matt's in trouble again. Matt's doing what he shouldn't, Mama." Especially Bode. They would be 16 and 17 now. Probably thinking of marriage before too much longer, already with some dull farmer picked out whether the fellow knew it or not. Had he really been gone so long? It did not seem so sometimes. Sometimes he felt as if he had left Eamon's Field just a week or two past. Other times it seemed years gone, only dimly remembered at all. He could remember Eldrin and Bode smirking when he'd been switched, but their faces were no longer sharp. His own sisters' faces. These bloody holes in his memory, like holes in his life. He saw Berylane coming toward him and grinned in spite of himself. For all her airs, she was a fine figure of a woman. That clinging white silk was thin enough for a handkerchief, not to mention being scooped low enough at the top to expose a considerable amount of excellent pale bosom. He swept her his best bow, elegant and formal. "A good evening to you, my lady." She started to sweep by without a glance, and he straightened angrily. "Are you deaf as well as blind, woman? I'm not a carpet to walk over, and I distinctly heard myself speak. If I pinch your bottom, you can slap my face, but until I do, I expect a civil word for a civil word." The first stopped dead, eyeing him in that way women had. She could have sewn him a shirt and told his weight, not to mention when he had his last bath, from that look. Then she turned away, murmuring something to herself. All he caught was "too much like me." He stared after her in amazement. Not a word to him. That face, that walk, and her nose so far in the air, it was a wonder her feet touched the ground. That was what he got, speaking to the likes of Berylane and Elaine, nobles who thought you were dirt, unless you had a palace and bloodlines back to Artur Hawkwing. Well, he knew a plump cook's helper, just plump enough, who did not think he was dirt. Dara had a way of nibbling his ears that... His thoughts stopped dead in their tracks. He had been considering seeing whether Dara was awake and up for a cuddle. He had even considered flirting with Berylane, or Rain. And the last words he had said to Perrin, "Look after my sisters," as if he had already decided, already knew what to do. Only he had not. He would not so easily, just sliding into it. There was a way, perhaps. Digging a gold coin from his pocket, he flipped it into the air and snatched it onto the back of his other hand. A Tar Valon mark he saw for the first time, and he was staring at the flame of Tar Valon, stylized like a teardrop. "Burn all Aes Sedai," he announced loudly, "and burn Randall Thor for getting me into this." A black and gold liveried servant stopped in mid-stride, staring at him worriedly. The man's silver tray was piled high with rolled bandages and jars of ointment. As soon as he realized Matt had seen him, he gave a jump. Matt tossed the gold mark onto the man's tray. "From the biggest fool in the world. Mind you spend it well, on women and wine." Thank you, my lord," the man stammered as if stunned. Matt left him standing there, the biggest fool in the world. Aren't I just? Chapter 14. Customs of Perrin shook his head as the door closed behind Matt. Matt would as soon hit himself on the head with a hammer as go back to the two rivers. Not unless he must. Perrin wished there was some way he could avoid going home too, but there was no way. It was a fact as hard as iron and less forgiving. The difference between Matt and himself was that he was willing to accept that, even when he did not want to. Easing his shirt off made him grunt, careful as he could be. A large bruise, already faded to browns and yellows, stained his entire left shoulder. A trolloc had slipped past his axe, and only Fail's quick work with a knife had kept it from being more than it was. The shoulder made washing painful, but at least there was no worry about cold water in Tyr. He was packed and ready. Only a change of clothes for the morning remaining out of his saddlebags. As soon as the sun rose, he would go find Loyal. No point in bothering the ajah tonight. He was probably already abed, where Perrin meant to be shortly. Fail was the only problem he had not figured out how to deal with. Even staying in Tyr would be better for her than going with him. The door opened, surprising him. Perfume wafted into him as soon as the door cracked. It made him think of climbing flowers on a hot summer night. A tantalizing scent. Not heavy, not to anyone but him, but nothing Fail would wear. Still, he was even more surprised when Berylane stepped into his room. Holding the edge of the door, she blinked, making him realize how dim the light must be for her. "You're going somewhere?" she said hesitantly. With the light of the hallway's lamps behind her, it was difficult not to stare. "Yes, my lady." He bowed, not smoothly, but as well as he could. Fail could give all the sharp sniffs she wanted, but he saw no reason not to be polite. "In the morning." "So am I." She closed the door and crossed her arms beneath her breasts. He looked away, watching her from the corner of his eye, so she would not think he was goggling. She went on without noticing his reaction. The single candle flame was reflected in her dark eyes. "After tonight, tomorrow I will leave by carriage for Godan, and from there take ship for Moiraine. I should have gone days ago, but I thought there must be some way to work matters out. Only there wasn't, of course. I should have seen that sooner. Tonight convinced me. The way he, all that lightning flowing down the halls. I will leave tomorrow." "My lady," Perrin said in confusion, "why are you telling me?" The way she tossed her head reminded him of a mare he had sometimes shoed in Emon's field. That mare would try to take a bite out of you. "So you can tell the Lord Dragon, of course." That made no more sense to him. "You can tell him yourself," he said, with more than a little exasperation. "I've no time for carrying messages before I go. I do not think he would wish to see me. Any man would want to see her, and she was beautiful to look at. She knew both things." He thought she had started to say something else. Could she have been that frightened by what had happened that night in Rand's bedchamber? Or the attack and the way Rand had ended it? Perhaps, but this was not a woman to frighten easily, not from the cool way she was eyeing him. "Give your message to a servant. I doubt I'll see Rand again. Not before I leave. Any servant will take a note to him. It would come better from you, a friend of the Lord. Give it to a servant. Or one of the aiel. You will not do as I ask?" she asked incredulously. "No. Haven't you been listening to me?" She tossed her head again, but there was a difference this time, though he could not have said what. Studying him thoughtfully, she murmured half to herself, "Such striking eyes." "What?" Suddenly he realized he was standing there, naked to the waist. Her intense scrutiny abruptly seemed like the study of a horse before purchase. Next thing, she would be feeling his ankles and inspecting his teeth. He snatched the shirt meant for morning from the bed and pulled it over his head. "Give your message to a servant. I want to go to bed now. I mean to be up early, before sunrise. Where are you going tomorrow?" "Home. The Two Rivers. It is late. If you are leaving tomorrow too, I suppose you want to get some sleep." "I know I'm tired." He yawned as widely as he could. She still made no move toward the door. "You are a blacksmith. I have need of a blacksmith in Moiraine, making ornamental ironwork. A short stay before returning to the Two Rivers. You would find Moiraine entertaining." "I'm going home," he told her firmly, "and you are going back to your own rooms." Her small shrug made him look away again hastily. "Perhaps another day. I always get what I want in the end." and I think I want." She paused, eyeing him up and down. "Sigh, das ornamental ironwork for the windows of my bedchamber." She smiled so innocently that he felt alarm gongs sounding his head. The door opened again, and Fail came in. "Perrin, I went into the city looking for you, and I heard a rumour." She stopped, stock still, her eyes hard on Berylane. The first ignored her. Stepping close to Perrin, she ran a hand up his arm, across his shoulder. For an instant he thought she meant to try pulling his head down for a kiss. She certainly lifted her face as if for one, but she only trailed her hand along the side of his neck in a quick caress and stepped back. It was over and done before he could move to stop her. "Remember," she said softly, as if they were alone, "I always get what I want." And she swept past Fail and out of the room. He waited for an explosion from Fail, but she glanced at his stuffed saddlebags on the bed and said, "I see you've heard the rumour already." "It is only a rumour, Perrin. Yellow eyes make it more than that." She should have been erupting like a bundle of dry twigs tossed on a fire. Why was she so cool? "Very well, very well. Moiraine is the next problem then. Would she try to stop you? Not if she doesn't know. If she tries, I will go anyway. I have family and friends, Fairly. I won't leave them to Whitecloaks. But I hope to keep it from her until I am well out of the city." Even her eyes were calm, like dark pools in the forest. It made his hackles rise. But it had to take weeks for that rumour to reach Tyr, and it will take weeks more to ride to the Two Rivers. The Whitecloaks could be gone by then. "Well, I have been wanting you to leave here. I should not complain. I just want you to know what to expect. It won't take weeks by the ways," he told her. 2 days, maybe 3. 2 days. He supposed there was no means to make it faster. "You are as mad as Rand Thor," she said disbelievingly. Dropping on the foot of his bed, she folded her legs crosswise and addressed him in a voice suitable for lecturing children. "Go into the ways, and you come out hopelessly mad. If you come out at all, which it is most likely you will not. The ways are tainted, Perrin. They have been dark for, what, 300 years? 400? Ask Loyal. He could tell you. It was Ogier's built the ways, or grew them, or whatever it was. Not even they use the ways. Why, even if you managed to make it through them unscathed, the light alone knows where you would come out. I have travelled them, Fail. And a frightening trip it had been, too. Loyal can guide me. He can read the guideposts, that's how we went before. He will do it for me again when he knows how important it is." Loyal was eager to be away from Tyr too. He seemed to be afraid that his mother knew where he was. Perrin was sure he would help. "Well," she said, rubbing her hands together briskly, "well, I wanted adventure, and this is certainly it. Leaving the Stone of Tyr and the Dragon Reborn, travelling the ways to fight Whitecloaks. I wonder whether we can persuade Tom Merrilin to come along. If we cannot have a bard, a gleeman will do. He could compose the story, and you and I the heart of it. No Dragon Reborn or Aes Sedai about to swallow up the tale. When do we leave? In the morning?" He took a deep breath to steady his voice. "I will be going alone, Fail. Just Loyal and me. We will need a pack-horse," she said, as if he had not spoken. 2, I think. The ways are dark. We will need lanterns and plenty of oil. You're Two Rivers people. Farmers? Will they fight Whitecloaks? Fail, I said. "I heard what you said," she snapped. Shadows gave her a dangerous look, with her tilted eyes and high cheekbones. "I heard, and it makes no sense. What if these farmers won't fight? Or don't know how? Who is going to teach them? You? Alone?" "I will do what has to be done," he said patiently. "Without you." She bounced to her feet so fast he thought she was coming for his throat. "Do you think Berylane will go with you? Will she guard your back? Or perhaps you prefer her to sit on your lap and squeal? Tuck your shirt in, you hairy oaf. Does it have to be so dark in here? Berylane likes dim light, does she? Much good she will do you against the children of the light." Perrin opened his mouth to protest and changed what he had been going to say. "She looks a pleasant armful, Berylane. What man wouldn't want her on his lap?" The hurt on her face banded his chest with iron, but he made himself go on. "When I am done at home, I may go to Myraine. She asked me to come, and I might." Fail said not a word. She stared at him with a face like stone, then whirled and ran out, slamming the door behind her with a crash. In spite of himself, he started to follow, then stopped with his hands gripping the doorframe till his fingers hurt. Staring at the splintered gash his axe had made in the door, he found himself telling it what he could not tell her. I killed white cloaks. They would have killed me if I hadn't, but they still call it murder. I'm going home to die, Fail. That's the only way I can stop them hurting my people. Let them hang me. I cannot let you see that. I can't. You might even try to stop it, and then they'd... His head dropped against the door. She would not be sorry to see the last of him now. That was what was important. She would go find her adventure somewhere else, safe from white cloaks and tarmongaidon and bubbles of evil. That was all that was important. He wished he did not want to howl with grief. Fail strode through the halls at a near run, oblivious of who she passed or who had to scramble out of her way. Perrin, Berylane, Perrin, Berylane. He wants a milk-faced vixen who runs about half-naked, does he? He doesn't know what he wants. Hairy lummox. Wooden-headed buffoon. Blacksmith. And that sneaking sow, Berylane. That prancing she-goat. She did not realize where she was going until she saw Berylane ahead of her, gliding along in that dress that left nothing to the imagination, swaying along as if that walk of hers was not deliberately calculated to make male eyes pop. Before Fail knew what she was doing, she had darted ahead of Berylane and turned to face her where two corridors met. Perrin Ibarra belongs to me, she snapped. You keep your hands and your smiles away from him. She flushed to her hairline when she heard what she had said. She had promised herself she would never do this, never fight over a man like a farm girl rolling in the dirt at harvest. Berylane arched a cool eyebrow. Belongs to you. Strange, I saw no collar on him. You serving girls, or are you a farmer's daughter? You have the most peculiar ideas. Serving girl? Serving girl. I am. Fail bit her tongue to stop the furious words. The first of Myine, indeed. There were estates in Saldea larger than Myine. She would not last a week in the courts of Saldea. Could she recite poetry while hawking? Could she ride in the hunt all day, then play the citern at night while discussing how to counter Trolloc raids? She thought she knew men, did she? Did she know the language of fans? Could she tell a man to come or go or stay, and 100 things more, all with the twist of a wrist and the placement of a lace fan? Light shine on me, what am I thinking? I swore I would never even hold a fan again. But there were other Saldean customs. She was surprised to see the knife in her hand. She had been taught not to draw a knife unless she meant to use it. Farm girls in Saldea have a way of dealing with women who poach others' men. If you do not swear to forget, Perrin Ibarra, I will shave your head as bald as an egg. Perhaps the boys who tend the chickens will pant after you then. She was not sure exactly how Berylane gripped her wrist, but suddenly she was flying through the air. The floor crashing into her back drove all the air from her lungs. Berylane stood smiling, tapping the blade of Fail's knife on her palm. A custom of Myine. The Tyrens do like to use assassins, and the guards cannot always be close at hand. I despise being attacked, farm girl, so this is what I will do. I will take the blacksmith away from you, and keep him as a pet for as long as he amuses me. Ogier's oath on it, farm girl. He's quite ravishing, really. Those shoulders, those arms, not to mention those eyes of his. And if he is a bit uncultured, I can have that remedied. My courtiers can teach him how to dress and rid him of that awful beard. Wherever he goes, I will find him and make him mine. You can have him when I am finished, if he still wants you, of course. Finally managing to draw a breath, Fail struggled to her feet, pulling a second knife. I will drag you to him, after I cut off those clothes you are almost wearing, and make you tell him you are nothing but a sow. Light help me, I am behaving like a farm girl and talking like one. The worst part was that she meant it. Berylane set herself warily. She meant to use her hands, obviously, not the knife. She held it like a fan. Fail advanced on the balls of her feet. Suddenly Rourke was there between them, towering over them, snatching the knives away before either woman was really aware of him. "Have you not seen enough blood already tonight?" he said coldly. "Of all those I thought I might find breaking the peace, the two of you would be the last named." Fayle gaped at him. With no warning, she pivoted, driving her fist toward Rourke's short ribs. The toughest man would feel it there. He seemed to move without looking at her, caught her hand, forced her arm straight to her side, twisted. Abruptly, she was standing very straight and hoping he did not push her arm right up out of her shoulder. As if nothing had happened, he addressed Berelain. "You will go to your room, and you will not come out until the sun is above the horizon. I will see that no breakfast is brought to you. A little hunger will remind you that there is a time and place for fighting." Berelain drew herself up indignantly. "I am the first of Moiraine. I will not be ordered about like. You will go to your rooms." "Now," Rewatch told her flatly. Fail wondered if she could kick him. She must have tensed, because as soon as she thought of it, he increased the pressure on her wrist, and she was up on her tiptoes. "If you do not," he went on to Berelain, "we will repeat our first talk together, you and I. Right here." Berelain's face went white and red by turns. "Very well," she said stiffly. "If you insist, I will, perhaps. I did not propose a discussion. If I can still see you when I have counted 3. 1. With a gasp, Berelain hiked her skirts and ran. She even managed to sway doing that. Fail stared after her in amazement. It was almost worth having her arm nearly disjointed. Rewatch was watching Berelain go, too, a small, appreciative smile on his lips. "Do you mean to hold me all night?" she demanded. He released her and tucked her knives into his belt. "Those are mine. Forfeit," he said. Berelain's punishment for fighting was to have you see her sent to bed like a willful child. Yours is to lose these knives you prize. I know you have others. If you argue, I might take those too. I will not have the peace broken." She glared at him, but she suspected he meant just what he said. Those knives had been made for her by a man who knew what he was doing. The balance was just right. "What first talk did you have with her? Why did she run like that?" "That is between her and me. You will not go near her again, Fail. I do not believe she started this, that one's weapons are not knives. If either of you makes trouble again, I will put both of you to carrying offal." Some of the Tyrens thought they could keep on fighting their duels after I had declared peace on this place, but the smell of the refuse carts soon taught them their mistake. "Be sure you do not have to learn it the same way." She waited until he had gone before nursing her shoulder. He reminded her of her father. Not that her father had ever twisted her arm, but he had small patience with those who made trouble, whatever their position, and no one ever caught him by surprise. She wondered if she could bait Berelain into something, just to see the first of Moiraine sweating among the refuse carts. But Rewatch had said both of them. Her father meant what he said too. Berelain. Something Berelain had said was tickling the back of her mind. Ajah's oath, that was it. That was it. An ajah never broke an oath. To say ajah oathbreaker was like saying brave coward or wise fool. She could not help laughing aloud. "You will take him from me, you silly peon? By the time you see him again, if you ever do, he'll be mine once more." Chuckling to herself and occasionally rubbing her shoulder, she walked on with a light heart. Chapter 15. Into the doorway, holding the glass-mantled lamp high, Matt peered down the narrow corridor deep in the belly of the stone. "Not unless my life depended on it. That's what I promised." "Well, burn me if it doesn't." Before doubt could seize him again, he hurried on, past doors dry-rotted and hanging aslant, past others only shreds of wood clinging to rusted hinges. The floor had been swept recently, but the air still smelled of old dust and mold. Something skittered in the darkness, and he had a knife out before he realized it was just a rat, running from him, no doubt running toward some escape hole it knew. "Show me the way out," he whispered after it, "and I'll come with you. Why am I whispering? There's nobody down here to hear me." It seemed a place for quiet, though. He could feel the whole weight of the stone over his head, pressing down. "The last door," she had said. That one hung askew, too. He kicked it open, and it fell apart. The room was littered with dim shapes, with crates and barrels and things stacked high against the walls and out into the floor. Dust, too. The great hold. It looks like the basement of an abandoned farmhouse, only worse. He was surprised that egwene and nynaeve had not dusted and tidied while they were down here. Women were always dusting and straightening, even things that did not need it. Footprints crisscrossed the floor, some of them from boots, but no doubt they had had men to shift the heavier items about for them. Nynaeve liked finding ways to make a man work. Likely she had deliberately hunted out some fellows enjoying themselves. What he sought stood out among the jumble, a tall redstone doorframe, looming oddly in the shadows cast by his lamp. When he came closer, it still looked odd, twisted somehow. His eye did not want to follow it around. The corners did not join right. The tall, hollow rectangle seemed likely to fall over at a breath, but when he gave it an experimental push, it stood steady. He pushed a bit harder, not sure he did not want to heave the thing over, and that side of it scraped through the dust. Goosebumps ran down his arms. There might as well have been a wire fastened to the top, suspending it from the ceiling. He held the lamp up to see. There was no wire. At least it won't topple while I'm inside. Light. I'm going inside, aren't I? A clutter of figurines and small things wrapped in rotting cloth occupied the top of a tall, up-ended barrel near him. He pushed the jumble to one side so he could set the lamp there and studied the doorway. The tarmongaidon. If Egwene knew what she was talking about. She probably did. No doubt she had learned all sorts of strange things in the tower, however much she denied. She would deny things, wouldn't she now? Learning to be Aes Sedai. She didn't deny this though, now did she? If he squinted, it just looked like a stone doorframe, dully polished, and the duller for dust. Just a plain doorframe. Well, not entirely plain. 3 sinuous lines carved deep in the stone ran down each upright from top to bottom. He had seen fancier on farmhouses. He would probably step through and find himself still in this dusty room. Won't know till I try, will I? Luck. Taking a deep breath and coughing from the dust, he put his foot through. He seemed to be stepping through a sheet of brilliant white light, infinitely bright, infinitely thick. For a moment that lasted forever, he was blind. A roaring filled his ears, all the sounds of the world gathered together at once, for just the length of one measureless step. Stumbling another pace, he stared around in amazement. The tarmongaidon was still there, but this was certainly not where he had started. The twisted stone doorframe stood in the center of a round hall with a ceiling so high it was lost in shadows, surrounded by strange spiral yellow columns snaking up into the gloom like huge vines twining round poles that had been taken away. A soft light came from glowing spears atop coiled stands of some white metal. Not silver. The shine was too dull for that. And no hint of what made the glow. It did not look like flame. The spheres simply shone. The floor tiles spiraled out in white and yellow stripes from the tarmongaidon. There was a heavy scent in the air, sharp and dry and not particularly pleasant. He almost turned around and went back on the spot. A long time. He jumped, a knife coming into his hand, and peered among the columns for the source of the breathy voice that pronounced those words so harshly. A long time, yet the seekers come again for answers. The questioners come once more. A shape moved back among the columns. A man, Matt thought. Odd. Good. You have brought no lamps, no torches, as the agreement was, and is, and ever will be. You have no iron, no instruments of music. The figure stepped out. Tall, barefoot, arms and legs and body wound about in layers of yellow cloth, and Matt was suddenly not so sure if it was a man or human. It looked human at first glance, though perhaps too graceful, but it seemed far too thin for its height, with a narrow, elongated face. Its skin, and even its straight black hair, caught the pale light in a way that reminded him of a snake's scales. And those eyes, the pupils just black, vertical slits. No, not human. Iron. Instruments of music. You have none? Matt wondered what it thought the knife was. It certainly did not seem concerned over it. Well, the blade was good steel, not iron. No. No iron, and no instruments of... Why? He cut off sharply. 3 questions, Egwene had said. We had said he was not about to waste one on iron or instruments of music. Why should he care if I have a dozen musicians in my pocket and a smithy on my back? I have come here for true answers. If you are not the one to give them, take me to who can. The man. It was male at least, Matt decided, smiled slightly. He did not show any teeth. According to the agreement, come. He beckoned with one long-fingered hand. Follow. Matt made the knife disappear up his sleeve. Lead, and I will follow. Just you keep ahead of me, and in plain sight. This place makes my skin crawl. There was not a straight line to be seen anywhere except for the floor itself, as he trailed the strange man. Even the ceiling was always arched, and the walls bowed out. The halls were continuously curved, the doorways rounded, the windows perfect circles. Tilework made spirals and sinuous lines, and what seemed to be bronze metalwork set in the ceiling at intervals was all complicated scrolls. There were no pictures of anything, no wall hangings or paintings. Only patterns, and always curves. He saw no one except his silent guide. He could have believed the place empty except for the two of them. From somewhere he had a dim memory of walking halls that had not known a human foot in hundreds of years, and this felt the same. Yet sometimes he caught a flicker of motion out of the corner of his eye. Only, however quickly he turned, there was never anyone there. He pretended to rub his forearms, checking the knives up his coat sleeves for reassurance. What he saw through those round windows was even worse. Tall, wispy trees with only a drooping umbrella of branches at the top, and others like huge fans of lacy leaves. A tangle of growth equal to the heart of any briar-choked thicket, all under a dim, overcast light, though there did not seem to be a cloud in the sky. There were always windows, always along just one side of the curving corridor, but sometimes the side changed, and what surely should have been looking into courtyard or rooms instead gave out into that forest. He never caught as much as a glimpse of any other part of this palace, or whatever it was, through those windows, or any other building, except. Through one circular window, he saw 3 tall, silvery spires, curving in toward each other, so their points all aimed at the same spot. They were not visible from the next window, 3 paces away, but a few minutes later, after he and his guide had rounded enough curves that he had to be looking in another direction, he saw them again. He tried telling himself these were 3 different spires, but between them and him was one of those fan-shaped trees with a dangling broken branch, a tree that had been in the same spot the first time. After his third sight of the spires and the strange tree with the broken branch, this time 10 paces farther on, but on the other side of the hallway, he tried to stop looking at what lay outside at all. The walk seemed interminable. When? Matt ground his teeth. 3 questions. It was hard to learn anything without asking questions. I hope you're taking me to those who can answer my questions. Burn my bones, I do. For my sake and yours, the light know it true. Here, the peculiar yellow-wrapped fellow said, gesturing with one of those thin hands to a rounded doorway twice as large as any Matt had seen before. His strange eyes studied Matt intently. His mouth gaped open, and he inhaled, long and slow. Matt frowned at him, and the stranger gave a writhing hitch of his shoulders. Here, your answers may be found. Enter. Enter and ask. Matt drew a deep breath of his own, then grimaced and scrubbed at his nose. That sharp, heavy smell was a rank nuisance. He took a hesitant step toward the tall doorway and looked around for his guide again. The fellow was gone. Light. I don't know why anything in this place surprises me now. Well, I will be burned if I'll turn back now. Trying not to think of whether he could find the tarmongaidon again on his own, he went in. It was another round room, with spiraling floor tiles in red and white under a domed ceiling. It had no columns or furnishings of any kind, except for 3 thick coiled pedestals around the heart of the floor's spirals. Matt could see no way to reach the top of them except by climbing the twists, yet a man like his guide sat cross-legged atop each, only wrapped in layers of red. Not all men, he decided at a second look. 2 of those long faces with the odd eyes had a definite feminine cast. They stared at him, intense, penetrating stares, and breathed deeply, almost panting. He wondered if he made them nervous in some way. Not much bloody chance of that, but they're certainly getting under my coat. It has been long, the woman on the right said. Very long, the woman on the left added. The man nodded. Yet they come again. All 3 had the breathy voice of the guide, almost indistinguishable from it, in fact, and the harsh way of pronouncing words. They spoke in unison, and the words might as well have come from one mouth. Enter and ask, according to the agreement of old. If Matt had thought his skin crawled before, now he was sure it was writhing. He made himself go closer. Carefully careful to say nothing that even sounded like a question, he laid the situation before them. The white cloaks, certainly in his home village, surely hunting friends of his, maybe hunting him. One of his friends going to face the white cloaks, another not. His family, not likely in danger, but with the bloody children of the bloody light around. a tavern pulling at him so he could hardly move. He saw no reason to give names or mention that Rand was the dragon reborn. His first question, and the other two for that matter, he had worked out before going down to the Great Hold. "Should I go home to help my people?" he asked finally. 3 sets of slitted eyes lifted from him, reluctantly it seemed, and studied the air above his head. Finally the woman on the left said, "You must go to Rewatch." As soon as she spoke, their eyes all dropped to him again, and they leaned forward, breathing deeply again. But at that moment a bell tolled, a sonorous brazen sound that rolled through the room. They swayed upright, staring at one another, then at the air over Matt's head again. "He is another," the woman on the left whispered. "The strain. The strain. The saver," the man said. "It has been long. There is yet time," the other woman told them. She sounded calm, they all did, but there was a sharpness to her voice when she turned back to Matt. "Ask. Ask." Matt glared up at them furiously. "Radian, light. That was somewhere out in the waste. The light and the aiel knew where." That was about as much as he knew. In the waste. Anger drove questions about how to get away from Aes Sedai and how to recover the lost parts of his memory right out his head. "Radian," he barked. "The light, burn my bones to ash if I want to go Radian, and my blood on the ground if I will. Why should I? You are not answering my questions. You are supposed to answer, not hand me riddles. If you do not go to Radian," the woman on the right said, "you will die." The bell tolled again, louder this time. Matt felt its tremor through his boots. The looks the 3 shared were plainly anxious. He opened his mouth, but they were only concerned with each other. "The strain," one of the women said hurriedly. "It is too great." "The savor of him," the other woman said on her heels. "It has been so very long." Before she was done, the man spoke. "The strain is too great. Too great. Ask. Ask. Burn your soul for a craven heart," Matt growled. "I will let. Why will I die if I do not go to Rewatch? I very likely will die if I try." "It makes no." The man cut him off and spoke hurriedly. "You will have sidestepped the thread of fate, left your fate to drift on the winds of time, and you will be killed by those who do not want that fate fulfilled. Now, go. You must go. Quickly." The yellow-clad guide was suddenly there at Matt's side, tugging at his sleeve with those 2 long hands. Matt shook him off. "No, I will not go. I will not go. You have led me from the questions I wanted to ask, and given me senseless answers. You will not leave it there. What fate are you talking about? I will have one clear answer out of you at least." A third time the bell sounded mournfully, and the entire room trembled. "Go," the man shouted. "You have had your answers. You must go before it is too late." Abruptly, a dozen of the yellow-clad men were around Matt, seeming to appear out of the air, trying to pull him toward the door. He fought with fists, elbows, knees. What fate? Burn your hearts, what fate? It was the room itself that peeled, the walls and floor quivering, nearly taking Matt and his attackers off their feet. What fate? The 3 were on their feet atop the pedestals, and he could not tell which shrieked which answer. "To marry the daughter of the 9 moons, to die and live again, and live once more a part of what was, to give up half the light of the world to save the world." Together they howled like steam escaping under pressure. "Go to Rewatch, son of battles. Go to Rewatch, trickster. Go, gambler. Go!" Matt's assailants snatched him into the air by his arms and legs and ran, holding him over their heads. "Unhand me, you white-livered sons of goats," he shouted, struggling. "Burn your eyes. The shadow, take your souls, loose me. I will have your guts for a saddle girth." But writhe and curse as he would, those long fingers gripped like iron. Twice more the bell tolled, or the palace did. Everything shook, as in an earthquake. The walls rang with deafening reverberations, each louder than the last. Matt's captors stumbled on, nearly falling but never stopping their pell-mell race. He did not even see where they were taking him until they suddenly stopped short, heaving him into the air. Then he saw the twisted doorway, the tarmongaidon, as he flew toward it. White light blinded him. The roar filled his head till it drove thought away. He fell heavily onto a dusty floor in dim light and rolled up against the barrel, holding his lamp in the great hold. The barrel rocked, packets and figurines toppling to the floor in a crash of breaking stone and ivory and porcelain. Bounding to his feet, he threw himself back at the stone doorframe. "Burn you! You can't throw me!" He hurtled through and stumbled against the crates and barrels on the other side. Without a pause, he turned and leaped at it again, with the same result. This time he caught himself on the barrel holding his lamp, which nearly fell onto the already shattered things littering the floor under his boots. He grabbed it in time, burning his hand, and fumbled it back to a steadier perch. "Burn me if I want to be down here in the dark," he thought, sucking his fingers. "Light, the way my luck is running, it probably would have started a fire and I'd have burned to death." He glared at the grill. Why was it not working? Maybe the folk on the other side had shut it off somehow. He understood practically nothing of what had happened. That bell, and their panic. You would have thought they were afraid the roof would come down on their heads. Come to think of it, it very nearly had. And Rewatch and all the rest of it. The waste was bad enough, but they said he was fated to marry somebody called the Daughter of the Nine Moons. Marry. And to a noblewoman, by the sound of it. He would sooner marry a pig than a noblewoman. And that business about dying and living again, nice of them to add the last bit. If some black-veiled Iowman killed him on the way to Rewatch, he would find out how true it was. It was all nonsense, and he did not believe a word of it. Only the bloody doorway had taken him somewhere, and they had only wanted to answer 3 questions, just the way Egwene had said. "I won't marry any bloody noblewoman," he told the tarmongaidon. "I'll marry when I'm too old to have any fun, that's what." "Rewatch, my bloody!" A boot appeared, backing out of the twisted stone doorway, followed by the rest of Rand, with that fiery sword in his hands. The blade vanished as he stepped clear, and he heaved a sigh of relief. Even in the dim light, Mac could see he was troubled, though. He gave a start when he saw Matt. "Just poking around, Matt? Or did you go through too?" Matt eyed him warily for a moment. At least that sword was gone. He did not seem to be channeling, though how was anybody to tell? And he did not look particularly like a madman. In fact, he looked very much as Matt remembered. He had to remind himself they were not back home any longer, and Rand was not what he remembered. "Oh, I went through, all right. A bunch of bloody liars, if you ask me. What are they? Made me think of snakes. Not liars, I think." Rand sounded as if he wished they were. "No, not that. No, not that. They were afraid of me, right from the first. And when that tolling started, the sword kept them back. They wouldn't even look at it. Shied away. Hid their eyes. Did you get your answers?" "Nothing that makes sense," Matt muttered. "What about you?" Suddenly Moiraine appeared from the tarmongaidon, seeming to step gracefully out of thin air, flowing out. She would be a fine one to dance with if she were not Aes Sedai. Her mouth tightened at the sight of them. You were both in there. That is why." She made a vexed hiss. "One of you would have been bad enough, but 2 Tavern at once. You might have torn the connection entirely and been trapped there. Wretched boys playing with things you do not know the danger of. Fine. Is Perrin in there too? Did he share your exploit?" "The last I saw of Perrin," Matt said, "he was getting ready to go bed. Maybe Perrin would give him the lie by being the next to step out of the thing, but he might as well deflect the Aes Sedai's anger if he could. No need for Perrin to face it too. Maybe he'll make it clear of her, at least, if he gets away before she knows what he's doing. Bloody woman. I'll wager she was noble-born. That Moiraine was angry, there was no doubt. The blood had drained out of her cheeks, and her eyes were dark augers boring into Rand. At least you escaped with your lives. Who told you of this? Which one of them? I will make her wish I had peeled off her hide like a glove." "A book told me," Rand said calmly. He sat down back on the edge of a crate that creaked alarmingly under his weight and crossed his arms. All very cool. Matt wished he could emulate it. A pair of books, in fact. Treasures of the Stone and Dealings with the Territory of Myriene. Surprising what you can dig out of books if you read long enough, isn't it? "And you?" She shifted that drilling gaze to Matt. "Did you read it in a book too?" "You? "I do read sometimes," he said dryly. He would not have been averse to a little hide peeling for Egwene and Nynaeve after what they had done to make him tell where he had hidden the amyrlin's letter. Tying him up with the power was bad enough, but the rest, yet it was more fun to tweak Moiraine's nose. Treasures, dealings, lots of things in books. Luckily, she did not insist that he repeat the titles. He had not paid attention once Rand brought up books. Instead, she swung back to Rand. "And your answers are mine," Rand replied, then frowned. It wasn't easy, though. They brought a woman, and to interpret, but she talked like an old book. I could hardly understand some of the words. I never considered they might speak another language. "The old tongue," Moiraine told him. They used the old tongue, a rather harsh dialect of it, for their dealings with men. "And you, Matt, was your interpreter easily understood?" He had to work moisture back into his mouth. "The old tongue? Is that what it was?" "They didn't give me one. In fact, I never got to ask any questions. That bell started shaking the walls down, and they hustled me out like I was tracking cow manure on the rugs." She was still staring, her eyes still digging into his head. She knew about the old tongue slipping out of him sometimes. I almost understood a word here and there, but not to know it. "You and Rand got answers. What do they get out of it? The snakes with legs. We aren't going upstairs to find 10 years gone, are we, like Billy in the story?" "Sensations," Moiraine replied with a grimace. "Sensations, emotions, experiences. They rummage through them, you can feel them doing it, making your skin crawl. Perhaps they feed on them in some manner. The Aes Sedai, who studied this Tir Angral when it was in Myne, wrote of a strong desire to bathe afterward. I certainly intend to, but their answers are true," Rand said as she started to turn away. "You are sure of it?" "The books implied as much, but can they really give true answers about the future?" "The answers are true," Moiraine said slowly, "so long as they are in regard to your own future. That much is certain." She watched Rand and himself, weighing the effect of her words. As to how, though, there is only speculation. That world is, to was, is, folded in strange ways. I cannot be clearer. It may be that that allows them to read the thread of a human life, read the various ways it may yet be woven into the pattern. Or perhaps it is a talent of the people. The answers are often obscure, however. If you need help working out what yours mean, I offer my services. Her eyes flickered from one of them to the other, and Matt nearly swore. She did not believe him about no answers, unless it was simply general Aes Sedai suspicion. Rand gave her a slow smile. "And will you tell me what you asked, and what they answered?" For answer, she returned a level, searching look, then started for the door. A small ball of light, as bright as a lantern, was suddenly floating ahead of her, illuminating her way. Matt knew he should leave it alone now. Just let her go and hope she forgot he'd ever been down here. But a knot of anger still burned inside him. All those ridiculous things they had said. Well, maybe they were true if Moiraine said so, but he wanted to grab those fellows by the collar, or whatever passed for a collar in those wrappings, and make them explain a few things. "Why can't you go there twice, Moiraine?" he called after her. "Why not?" He very nearly asked why they worried about iron and musical instruments too, and bit his tongue. He could not know about those if he had not understood what they were saying. She paused at the door to the hall, and it was impossible to see if she was looking at the Tir Angral or at Rand. "If I knew everything, Maxim, I would not need to ask questions." She peered into the room a moment longer. She was staring at Rand, then glided away without another word. For a time, Matt and Rand looked at each other in silence. "Did you find out what you wanted?" Rand asked finally. "Did you?" A bright flame leaped into existence, balanced above Rand's palm. Not the smooth, glowing sphere of the Aes Sedai, but a rough blaze like a torch. As Rand moved to leave, Matt added another question. "Are you really going to just let the White Cloaks do whatever they want back home? You know they're heading for Emond's Field, if they're not there already." Yellow eyes, the bloody dragon reborn. "It's too much, otherwise. Perrin will do what he has to do to save Emond's Field," Rand replied in a pained voice. "And I must do what I have to, or more than Emond's Field will fall, and to worse than White Cloaks." Matt stood watching the light of that flame fade away down the hall until he remembered where he was. Then he snatched up his lamp and hurried out. Oidian. Light. What am I going to do? Chapter 16. Leave-takings. Lying on sweat-soaked sheets, staring at the ceiling, Perrin realized that the darkness was turning to grey. Soon the sun would be edging above the horizon. Morning. A time for new hopes. A time to be up and doing. New hopes. New hopes. He almost laughed. How long had he been awake? An hour or more, surely this time. Scratching his curly beard, he winced. His bruised shoulder had stiffened, and he sat up slowly. Sweat popped out on his face as he worked the arm. He kept at it methodically, though, suppressing groans and now and again biting back a curse until he could move the arm freely, if not comfortably. Such sleep as he had managed had been broken and fitful. When he was awake, he had seen Fael's face, her dark eyes accusing him, the hurt he had put there making him cringe inside. When he slept, he dreamed of mounting a gallows, and Fael watching, or worse, trying to stop it, trying to fight white cloaks with their lances and swords, and he was screaming while they fitted the noose around his neck, screaming because the white cloaks were killing Fael. Sometimes she watched them hang him with a smile of angry satisfaction. Small wonder such dreams wakened him with a jerk. Once he had dreamed of wolves running out of the forest to save both Fael and him, only to be spitted on white-clad lances, shot down by their arrows. It had not been a restful night. Washing and dressing as hurriedly as he could, he left the room as if hoping to leave memories of his dreams behind. Little outward evidence remained of the night's attack. Here a sword-slashed tapestry, there a chest with a corner splintered by an axe or a lighter patch on the stone-tiled floor where a blood-stained rug had been removed. The Majher had her liveried army of servants out in force, though many wore bandages, sweeping, mopping, clearing away and replacing. She limped about leaning on a stick. A broad woman with her grey hair pushed up like a round cap by the dressing wound around her head, calling her orders in a firm voice, with the clear intention of removing every sign of the stone's second violation. She saw Perrin and gave him an infinitesimal curtsy. Even the High Lords did not get much more from her, even when she was well. Despite all the cleaning and scrubbing, under the smell of waxes and polishes and cleaning fluids, Perrin could still catch the faint scent of blood, sharply metallic human blood, fetid Trolloc blood, acrid Myrddrael blood with its stink that burned his nostrils. He would be glad to be away from here. The door to Loyal's room was a span across and more than 2 spans high, with an overlarge door handle in the shape of entwined vines level with Perrin's head. The stone had a number of rarely used Ogier guest rooms. The stone of Tyr predated even the age of great Ogier stoneworks, but it was a point of prestige to use Ogier stonemasons, at least from time to time. Perrin knocked, and at the call of "Come in," in a voice like a slow avalanche, lifted the handle and complied. The room was on a scale with the door in every dimension, yet Loyal, standing in the middle of the leaf-patterned carpet in his shirt-sleeves, a long pipe in his teeth, reduced it all to seemingly normal size. The Ogier stood taller than a Trolloc in his wide-toed, thigh-high boots, if not so broad as one, his dark green coat buttoned to the waist, then flaring to his boot-tops like a kilt over baggy trousers, no longer looked odd to Perrin, but one look was enough to tell this was not an ordinary man in an ordinary room. The Ogier's nose was so broad as to seem a snout, and eyebrows like long moustaches dangled beside eyes the size of teacups. Tufted ears poked up through shaggy black hair that hung nearly to his shoulders. When he grinned around his pipe stem at the sight of Perrin, it split his face in half. "Good morning, Perrin," he rumbled, removing the pipe. "You slept well?" "Not easy, after such a night as that. Myself, I have been up half the night writing down what happened." He had a pen in his other hand and ink stains on his sausage-thick fingers. Books lay everywhere on Ogier-sized chairs, and the huge bed and the table that stood as high as Perrin's chest. That was no surprise, but what was a little startling was the flowers. Flowers of every sort, in every colour. Vases of flowers, baskets of them, posies tied with ribbon or even string, great woven banks of flowers standing about like lengths of garden wall. Perrin had certainly never seen the like inside a room. Their scent filled the air. Yet what really caught his eye was the swollen knot on Loyal's head, the size of a man's fist, and the heavy limp in Loyal's walk. If Loyal had been hurt too badly to travel. He felt ashamed at thinking of it that way. The ajah was a friend, but he had to. You were injured, Loyal? Moiraine could heal you. I'm sure she will. Oh, I can get around with no trouble. And there were so many who truly needed her help. I would not want to bother her. It certainly is not enough to hamper me in my work. Loyal glanced at the table where a large cloth-bound book, large for Perrin, but it would fit in one of the ajah's coat pockets, lay open beside an uncorked ink bottle. I hope I wrote it all down correctly. I did not see very much last night until it was done. Loyal, Fail said, standing up from behind one of the banks of flowers with a book in her hands, is a hero. Perrin jumped. The flowers had masked her scent completely. Loyal made shushing noises, his ears twitching with embarrassment, and waved his big hands at her, but she went on, her voice cool, but her eyes hot on Perrin's face. He gathered as many children as he could, and some of their mothers into a large room, and held the door alone against Trollocs and Myrddraal through the entire fight. These flowers are from the women of the stone, tokens to honor his steadfast courage, his faithfulness. She made steadfast and faithfulness crack like whips. Perrin managed not to flinch, but only just. What he had done was right, but he could not expect her to see it. Even if she knew why, she would not see it. It was the right thing. Why them, it was. He only wished he felt better about the entire matter. It was hardly fair that he could be right and still feel in the wrong. It was nothing. Loyal's ears twitched wildly. It is just that the children could not defend themselves. That's all. Not a hero. No, nonsense. Fail marked her place in the book with a finger and moved closer to the ajah. She did not come up to his chest. There is not a woman in the stone who would not marry you if you were human, and some would anyway. Loyal well named, for your nature is loyalty. Any woman could love that. The ajah's ears went stiff with shock, and Perrin grinned. She had obviously been feeding Loyal honey and butter all morning in hope. The ajah would agree to take her along no matter what Perrin wanted, but in trying to prick him, she had just fed Loyal a stone without knowing it. "Have you heard from your mother, Loyal?" he asked. "No!" Loyal managed to sound relieved and worried at the same time. "But I saw Leifar in the city yesterday. He was as surprised to see me as I to see him. We are not a common sight in Tyr. He came from steading Shanghai to negotiate repairs on some ajah stonework in one of the palaces. I have no doubt the first words out of his mouth when he returns to the steading will be, 'Loyal is in Tyr.'" "That is worrying," Perrin said, and Loyal nodded dejectedly. "Leifar says the elders have named me a runaway, and my mother has promised to have me married and settled. She even has someone chosen. Leifar did not know who. At least, he said he did not. He thinks such things are funny. She could be here in a month's time." Fail's face was a picture of confusion that almost made Perrin grin again. She thought she knew so much more than he did about the world. Well, she did in truth. But she did not know Loyal. Steading Shanghai was Loyal's home, in the spine of the world, and since he was barely past 90, he was not old enough to have left on his own. Ajah lived a very long time by their standards. Loyal was no older than Perrin, maybe younger, but Loyal had gone anyway to see the world, and his greatest fear was that his mother would find him and drag back to the steading to marry, never to leave again. While Fayle was trying to figure out what was going on, Perrin stepped into the silence. "I need to go back to the Two Rivers, Loyal. Your mother won't find you there." "Yes, that is true." The ajah gave an uncomfortable shrug. But my book, Rand's story, and yours and Matt's. I have so many notes already, but..." He moved around behind the table, peering down at the open book, the pages filled with his neat script. "I will be the one to write the true story of the Dragon Reborn, Perrin. The only book by someone who traveled with him, who actually saw it unfold. The Dragon Reborn, by Loyal, son of Aront, son of Halan, of Steading Shanghai." Frowning, he bent over the book, dipping his pen in the ink bottle. "That is not quite right. It was more." Perrin put a hand on the page where Loyal was going to write. You'll write no book if your mother finds you. Not about Rand, at least. And I need you, Loyal. Need, Perrin? I do not understand. There are white cloaks in the 2 rivers. Hunting me, hunting you. But why? Loyal looked almost as confused as Fail had. Fail, on the other hand, had donned a complacent smuggness that was worrisome. Perrin went on anyway. The reasons don't matter. The fact is that they are. They may hurt people, my family, looking for me. Knowing white cloaks, they will. I can stop it if I can get there quickly, but it must be quickly. The light only knows what they've done already. I need you to take me there, Loyal, by the ways. You told me once there was a waygate here, and I know there was one at Mandragoran. It must still be there, in the mountains above Emon's field. Nothing can destroy a waygate, you said. I need you, Loyal. Well, of course I will help, Loyal said. The ways. He exhaled noisily, and his ears wilted a bit. I want to write of adventures, not have them. But I suppose one more time will not hurt. The light send it so, he finished fervently. Fail cleared her throat delicately. Are you not forgetting something, Loyal? You promised to take me into the ways whenever I asked, and before you took anyone else. I did promise you a look at a waygate, Loyal said, and what it is like inside. You could have that when Perrin and I go. You could come with us, I suppose, but the ways are not travelled lightly, Fail. I would not enter them myself if Perrin did not have need. Fail will not be coming, Perrin said firmly. Just you and me, Loyal. Ignoring him, Fail smiled up at Loyal as if he were teasing her. You promised more than a look, Loyal. To take me wherever I wanted, whenever I wanted, and before anyone else. You swore to it. I did, Loyal protested, but only because you refused to believe I would show you. You said you would not believe unless I swore. I will do as I promised, but surely you do not want to step ahead of Perrin's need. You swore, Fail said calmly, by your mother, and your mother's mother, and your mother's 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 mother. Yes, I did, Fail, but Perrin, you swore, Loyal. Do you mean to break your oath? The Ogier looked like misery, stacked on misery. His shoulders slumped and his ears drooped. The corners of his wide mouth turned down, and the ends of his long eyebrows draggled onto his cheeks. She tricked you, Loyal. Perrin wondered if they could hear his teeth grinding. She deliberately tricked you. Red stained Fail's cheeks, but she still had the nerve to say, only because I had to, Loyal. Only because a fool man thinks he can order my life to suit himself. I'd not have done it otherwise. You must believe that. Does it make any difference that she tricked you? Perrin demanded, and Loyal shook his massive head sadly. Ogier, keep their word, Faile said. And Loyal is going to take me to the 2 rivers, or to the waygate at Mandragoran, at least. I have a wish to see the 2 rivers. Loyal stood up straight, but that means I can help Perrin after all. Fail, why did you drag this out? Even Leifar would not think this funny. There was a touch of anger in his voice. It took a good bit to make an Ogier angry. If he asks, she said determinedly. That was part of it, Loyal. No one but you and me, unless they ask me. He has to ask me. No, Perrin told her, while Loyal was still opening his mouth. No, I won't ask. I will ride to Emon's field first. I'll walk, so you might as well give up this foolishness. Tricking Loyal. Trying to force yourself in where you aren't wanted. Her calm dropped away in anger, and by the time you reach there, Loyal and I will have done for the White Cloaks. It will all be over. Ask, you anvil-headed blacksmith. Just ask, and you can come with us. Perrin took hold of himself. There was no way to argue her around to his way of thinking, but he would not ask. She was right. He would need weeks to reach the 2 rivers on his horse. They could be there in 2 days, perhaps, through the ways. But he would not ask. Not after she tricked Loyal and tried to bully me. Then I'll travel the ways to Mandragoran alone. I'll follow you 2. If I stay far enough back not to be part of your party, I won't be breaking Loyal's oath. You can't stop me following. That is dangerous, Perrin, Loyal said worriedly. The ways are dark. If you miss a turning, or take the wrong bridge by accident, you could be lost forever, or until Makinshin catches you. Ask her, Perrin. She said you can come. If you do, ask her. The Ogier's deep voice trembled, speaking the name of Makinshin, and a shiver ran down Perrin's back, too. Yin Shin. The Black Wind. Not even Aes Sedai knew whether it was shadowspawn or something that had grown out of the Way's corruption. Machine Shin was why traveling the Ways meant risking death. That was what Aes Sedai said. The Black Wind ate souls that Perrin knew for truth, but he kept his voice steady and his face straight. I'll be burned if I let her think I am weakening. I can't, Loyal. Or anyway, I won't. Loyal grimaced. Fairly, it will be dangerous for him, trying to follow us. Please relent and let him. She cut him off sharply. No, if he is too stiff-necked to ask, why should I? Why should I even care if he does get lost? She turned to Perrin. You can travel close to us, as close as you need to, so long as it's plain you are following. You will trail after me like a puppy until you ask. Why won't you just ask? Stubborn humans, the Ajah muttered. Hasty and stubborn, even when haste lands you in a hornet nest. I would like to leave today, Loyal, Perrin said, not looking at Fail. Best to go quickly, Loyal agreed, with a regretful look at the book on the table. I can tidy my notes on the journey, I suppose. The light knows what I will miss, being away from Rand. Did you hear me, Perrin? Fail demanded. I will get my horse and a few supplies, Loyal. We can be on our way by mid-morning. Burn you, Perrin Ibarra, answer me. Loyal eyed her worriedly. Perrin, are you certain you could not? No, Perrin interrupted gently. She is mule-headed and she likes playing tricks. I won't dance so she can laugh. He ignored the sound coming from deep in Fail's throat, like a cat staring at a strange dog and ready to attack. I will let you know as soon as I am ready. He started for the door and she called after him furiously. When is my decision, Perrin Ibarra? Mine and Loiel's. Do you hear me? You'd better be ready in 2 hours, or we'll leave you behind. You can reach us at the Dragonwall Gate stable, if you're coming. Do you hear me? He sensed her moving and shut the door behind him, just as something thumped into it heavily. A book, he thought. Loyal would give her fits about that. Better to hit Loyal on the head than harm one of his books. For a moment he leaned against the door, despairing. All he had done, all he had gone through, making her hate him, and she was going to be there to see him die anyway. The best thing he could say was that she might enjoy it now. Stubborn, mule-headed woman. When he turned to go, one of the aiel was approaching, a tall man with reddish hair and green eyes who could have been Rand's older cousin or a young uncle. He knew the man and liked him, if only because Gaul had never given even a flicker of notice to his yellow eyes. May you find shade this morning, Perrin. The March Hairy told me you had come this way, though I think she itched to put a broom in my hands. As hard as a wise one, that woman. May you find shade this morning, Gaul. Women are all hard-headed, if you ask me. Perhaps so, if you do not know how to get round them. I hear you are journeying to the 2 rivers. Light, Perrin growled, before the aiel could say more. Does the whole stone know? If Moiraine knew? Gaul shook his head. Randall Thor took me aside and spoke to me, asking me to tell no one. I think he spoke to others too, but I do not know how many will want to go with you. We have been on this side of the Dragon War for a long time, and many ache for the threefold land. Come with me. Perrin felt stunned. If he had aiel with him, there were possibilities he had not dared consider before. Rand asked you to come with me. To the 2 rivers. Gaul shook his head again. He said only that you were going, and that there were men who might try to kill you. I mean to accompany you, though, if you will have me. Will I? Perrin almost laughed. I will that. I will that. We will be into the Ways in a few hours. The Ways? Gaul's expression did not change, but he blinked. Does that make a difference? Death comes for all men, Perrin. It was hardly a comforting answer. I cannot believe Rand is that cruel, Egwene said, and Nynaeve added, at least he did not try to stop you. Seated on Nynaeve's bed, they were finishing the division of the gold Moiraine had provided. 4 fat purses apiece to be carried in pockets, sewn under Elaine's and Nynaeve's skirts, and another each, not so large as to attract unwanted attention, to carry at the belt. Egwene had taken a lesser amount, there being less use for gold in the waist. Elaine frowned at the 2 neatly tied bundles and the leather scrip lying beside the door. They held all of her clothes and other things. Case knife and fork, hairbrush and comb, needles, pins, thread, thimble, scissors, a tinder box and a second knife, smaller than the one at her belt, soap and bath powder, and... It was ridiculous to go over the list again. Egwene's stone ring was snug in her pouch. She was ready to go. There was nothing to hold her back. No, he did not. Elaine was proud of how calm and collected she sounded. He seemed almost relieved, and I had to give him that letter, laying my heart open like a stone-blind fool. At least he won't open it until I am gone. She jumped at the touch of Nynaeve's hand on her shoulder. Did you want him to ask you to stay? You know what your answer would have been. You do, don't you? Elaine compressed her lips. Of course I do. But he did not have to look happy about it. She had not meant to say that. Nynaeve gave her an understanding look. Men are difficult at the best. I still cannot believe he would be so. So, Egwene began in an angry mutter. Elaine never learned what she meant to say, for at that moment the door crashed open so hard that it bounced off the wall. Elaine embraced Saidar before she had stopped flinching, then felt a moment of embarrassment when the rebounding door slapped hard against Lan's outstretched hand. A moment more, and she decided to hold on to the source a while longer. The warder filled the doorway with his broad shoulders, his face a thunderhead. If his blue eyes could really have given off the thunderbolts they threatened, they would have blasted Nynaeve. The glow of Saidar surrounded Egwene too, and did not fade. Lan did not appear to see anyone but Nynaeve. You let me believe you were returning to Tar Valon, he rasped at her. You may have believed it, she said calmly, but I never said it. Never said it? Never said it. You spoke of leaving today, and always linked your leaving with those dark friends being sent to Tar Valon. Always. What did you mean me to think? But I never said. Light woman, he roared. Do not bandy words with me. Elaine exchanged worried looks with Egwene. This man had an iron self-control, but he was at a breaking point now. Nynaeve was one who often let her emotions rage, yet she faced him coolly, head high and eyes serene, hands still on her green silk skirts. Lan took hold of himself with an obvious effort. He appeared as stone-faced as ever, as much in control of himself, and Elaine was sure it was all on the surface. I'd not have known where you were off to if I'd not heard that you had ordered a carriage to take you to a ship bound for Tanchico. I do not know why the amyrlin allowed you to leave the tower in the first place, or why Moiraine involved you in questioning Black Sisters, but you three are accepted. Accepted, not Aes Sedai. Tanchico now is no place for anyone except a full Aes Sedai with a warder to watch her back. I'll not let you go into that. So, Nynaeve said lightly, you question Moiraine's decisions, and those of the amyrlin seat as well. Perhaps I've misunderstood warders all along. I thought you swore to accept and obey, among other things. Lan, I do understand your concern, and I am grateful, more than grateful, but we all have tasks to perform. We are going, you must resign yourself to the fact. Why? For the love of the light, at least tell me why. Tanchico, if Moiraine has not told you, Nynaeve said gently, perhaps she has her reasons. We must do our tasks, as you must do yours. Lan trembled, actually trembled, and clamped his jaw shut angrily. When he spoke, he was strangely hesitant. You will need someone to help you in Tanchico. Someone to keep a Tarabona street thief from slipping a knife into your back for your purse. Tanchico was that sort of city before the war began, and everything I've heard says it is worse now. I could protect you, Nynaeve. Elaine's eyebrows shot up. He could not be suggesting. He just could not be. Nynaeve gave no sign that he had said anything out of the ordinary. Your place is with Moiraine. Moiraine. Sweat beaded on the warder's hard face, and he struggled with the words. If I can. I must. Nynaeve, I? You will remain with Moiraine, Nynaeve said sharply, until she releases you from your bond. You will do as I say. Pulling a carefully folded paper from her pouch, she thrust it into his hands. He frowned, read, then blinked and read again. Elaine knew what it said. What the bearer does is done at my order and by my authority. Obey and keep silent at my command. Suang, Sanch, Watcher of the Seals, Flame of Tar Valon, the amyrlin seat. The other like it rested in Egwene's pouch, though none of them were sure what good it would do where she was going. But this allows you to do anything you please, Lan protested. You can speak in the amyrlin's name. Why would she give this to an accepted? Ask no questions I cannot answer, Nynaeve said, then added with a hint of a grin, just count yourself lucky I do not tell you to dance for me. Elaine suppressed a smile of her own. Egwene made a choking sound of swallowed laughter. It was what Nynaeve had said when the amyrlin first handed them the letters. With this, I could make a warder dance. Neither of them had had any doubt which warder she had meant. Do you not? You dispose of me very neatly. My bond and my oaths. This letter. Lan had a dangerous gleam in his eye, which Nynaeve seemed not to notice as she took back the letter and replaced it in the pouch on her belt. You are very full of yourself, Orlan Mandragoran. We do as we must, as you will. Full of myself, Nynaeve or Mira? I am full of myself? Lan moved so quickly toward Nynaeve that Elaine very nearly wrapped him in flows of air before she could think. One moment Nynaeve was standing there with just time to gape at the tall man sweeping toward her. The next her shoes were dangling a foot off the floor, and she was being quite thoroughly kissed. At first she kicked his shins and hammered him with her fists and made sounds of frantic, furious protest. But her kick slowed and stopped, and then she was holding on to his shoulders and not protesting at all. Egwene dropped her eyes with embarrassment, but Elaine watched interestedly. Was that how she had looked when Rand? Or, no, I will not think about him. She wondered if there was time to write him another letter, taking back everything she had said in the first, letting him know she was not to be trifled with. But did she want to? After a while, Lan set Nynaeve back on her feet. She swayed a bit as she straightened her dress and patted her hair furiously. You have no right. She began in a breathless voice, then stopped to swallow. I will not be manhandled in that fashion for the whole world to see. I will not. Not the whole world, he replied. But if they can see, they can hear as well. You have made a place in my heart where I thought there was no room for anything else. You have made flowers grow where I cultivated dust and stones. Remember this, on this journey you insist on making. If you die, I will not survive you long. He gave Nynaeve one of his rare smiles. If it did not exactly soften his face, at least it made it less hard. And remember also, I am not always so easily commanded, even with letters from the amyrlin. He made an elegant bow for a moment. Elaine thought he actually meant to kneel and kiss Nynaeve's great serpent ring. As you command, he murmured, so do I obey. It was difficult to tell whether he meant to be mocking or not. As soon as the door closed behind him, Nynaeve sank onto the edge of her bed, as if letting her knees give way at last. She stared at the door with a pensive frown. Poke the meekest dog too often, Elaine quoted, and he will bite. Not that Lan is very meek. She got a sharp look and a sniff from Nynaeve. He is insufferable, Egwene said. Sometimes he is. Nynaeve, why did you do that? He was ready to go with you. I know you want nothing more than to break him free of Moiraine. Do not try to deny it. Nynaeve did not try. Instead, she fussed with her dress and smoothed the coverlet on the bed. Not like that, she said finally. I mean him to be mine. All of him. All of him. I will not have him remembering a broken oath to Moiraine. I will not have that between us. For him, as well as myself. But will it be any different if you bring him to ask Moiraine to release him from his bond? Egwene asked. Lan is the kind of man who would see it as much the same thing. All that leaves is to somehow make her let him go of her own accord. How can you manage that? I do not know. Nynaeve firmed her voice. Yet what must be done can be done. There is always a way. That is for another time. Work to be done, and we sit here fretting over men. Are you sure you have everything you need for the waste, Egwene? Aviendha is readying everything, Egwene said. She still seems unhappy, but she says we can reach Ruidin in little more than a month, if we are lucky. You will be in Tanchico by then. Perhaps sooner, Elaine told her, if what they say about seafolk rakers is true. You will be careful, Egwene. Even with Aviendha for a guide, the waste cannot be safe. I will. You be careful. Both of you. Tanchico is not much safer than the waste now. Abruptly, they were all hugging one another, repeating cautions to take care, making sure they all remembered the schedule for meeting in Teleran Ryod's stone. Elaine wiped tears from her cheeks. "Hey!" As well, Lan left. She laughed tremulously. "He would think we were all being foolish." "No, he would not," Nynaeve said, pulling up her skirts to settle a purse of gold into its pocket. "He may be a man, but he is not a complete dolt." There had to be time between here and the carriage to locate paper and pen, Elaine decided. She would find time. Nynaeve had the right of it. Men needed a firm hand. Rand would find he could not get away from her so easily, and he would not find it easy to worm his way back into her good graces. Chapter 17. Deceptions. Favoring his stiff right leg, Tom bowed with a flourish of his gleeman's cloak that set the colourful patches fluttering. His eyes felt grainy, but he made himself speak lightly. "A good morning to you." Straightening, he knuckled his long white moustaches grandly. The black and gold-clad servants looked surprised. The two muscular lads straightened from the gold-studded red lacquer chest with a shattered lid that they had been about to lift, and the three women stilled their mops in front of them. The hallway was empty along here except for them, and any excuse to break their labor was good, especially at this hour. They looked as tired as Tom felt, with slumping shoulders and dark circles under their eyes. "A good morning to you, Gleeman," the oldest of the women said. A bit plump and plain-faced, perhaps, she had a nice smile, weary as she was. "Can we help you?" Tom produced 4 coloured balls from a capacious coat sleeve and began to juggle. "I'm just going about trying to raise spirits. A gleeman must do what he can." He would have used more than 4, but he was fatigued enough to make even that many an exercise in concentration. How long since he had nearly dropped a 5th ball? 2 hours? He stifled a yawn, turned it into a reassuring smile. "A terrible night, and spirits need lifting." "The Lord Dragon saved us," one of the younger women said. She was pretty and slim, but with a predatory gleam in her dark, shadowed eyes that warned him to temper his smile. Of course, she might be useful if she was both greedy and honest, meaning that she would stay bought once he paid her. It was always good to find another set of hands to place a note, a tongue that would tell him what was heard and say what he wanted, where he wanted. "Old fool, you have enough hands and ears, so stop thinking of a fine bosom and remember the look in her eye." The interesting thing was that she sounded as if she meant what she said, and one of the young fellows nodded agreement to her words. "Yes," Tom said. "I wonder which High Lord had charge of the docks yesterday." He nearly fumbled the balls in irritation at himself, bringing it right out like that. He was too tired, he should be in his bed. He should have been there hours ago. "The docks are the defender's responsibility," the oldest woman told him. "You'd not know that, of course. The High Lords would not concern themselves." Tom knew it very well. "Is that so? Is that so? Well, I am not Tyran, of course." He changed the balls from a simple circle to a double loop. It looked more difficult than it was, and the girl with the predatory look clapped her hands. Now that he was into it, he might as well go on. After this, though, he would call it a night. A night? The sun was rising already. Still, it is a shame no one asked why those barges were at the docks, with their hatches down, hiding all those trollocs. Not that I am saying anyone knew the trollocs were there. The double loop wobbled, and he quickly went back to a circle. Light, he was exhausted. You'd think one of the High Lords would have asked, though. The two young men frowned thoughtfully at one another, and Tom smiled to himself. Another seed planted just that easily, if clumsily as well. Another rumour started, whatever they knew for a fact about who had charge of the docks. And rumours spread. A rumour like this would not stop short of the city, so it was another small wedge of suspicion driven between commoners and nobles. Who would the commoners turn to, except the man they knew the nobles hated? The man who had saved the stone from shadowspawn. Randall Thor. The Lord Dragon. It was time to leave what he had sown. If the roots had taken hold here, nothing he said now could pull them loose, and he had scattered other seeds this night. But it would not do for anyone to discover he was the one doing the planting. They fought bravely last night, the High Lords did. Why, I saw. He trailed off as the women leaped to their mopping and the men grabbed up the chest and hurried away. I can find work for Gleeman too, the Mashere's voice said behind him. Idle hands are idle hands. He turned gracefully, considering his leg, and swept her a deep bow. The top of her head was below his shoulder, but she probably weighed half again what he did. She had a face like an anvil, not improved by the bandage around her temples, an extra chin, and deep-set eyes like chips of black flint. "A good morning to you, gracious lady. A small token of this fresh, new day." He gestured with a flurry of hands and tucked a golden-yellow sunburst blossom, only a little bedraggled for its time up his sleeve, into the grey hair above her bandage. She snatched the flower right out again, of course, and eyed it suspiciously, but that was just as he wanted. He put 3 limping strides into her moment of hesitation, and when she shouted something after him, he neither listened nor slowed. Horrible woman, he thought. If we had turned her loose on the Trollocs, she'd have had them all sweeping and mopping. He yawned behind a hand, jaws creaking. He was too old for this. He was tired, and his knee was a knot of pain. Nights with no sleep, battles, plotting. Too old. He should be living quietly on a farm somewhere, with chickens. Farms always had chickens. And sheep. They must not be difficult to look after. Shepherds seemed to loll about and play the pipes all the time. He would play the harp, of course, not pipes. Or his flute. Weather was not good for the harp. And there would be a town nearby with an inn where he could amaze the patrons in the common room. He flourished his cloak as he passed 2 servants. The only point in wearing it in this heat was to let people know he was a gleeman. They perked up at the sight of him, of course, hoping he might pause to entertain for a moment. Most gratifying. Yes, a farm had its virtues. A quiet place. No people to bother him. As long as there was a town close by. Pushing open the door to his room, he stopped in his tracks. Moiraine straightened as if she had a perfect right to be going through the papers scattered on his table, and calmly arranged her skirts as she sat on the stool. Now there was a beautiful woman, with every grace a man could want, including laughing at his quips. "Oh, old fool, she's Aes Sedai, and you're too tired to think straight." "A good morning to you, Moiraine Sedai," he said, hanging his cloak on a peg. He avoided looking at his writing case, still sitting under the table where he had left it. No point in letting her know it was important. Probably no point in checking after she went, for that matter. She could have channeled the lock open and closed again, and he would never be able to tell. Weary as he was, he could not even remember whether he had left anything incriminating in the case, or anywhere else for that matter. Everything he could see in the room was right where it belonged. He did not think he could have been foolish enough to leave anything out. Doors in the servants' quarters had no locks or latches. "I would offer you a refreshing drink, but I fear I have nothing but water." "I am not thirsty," she said in a pleasant, melodious voice. She leaned forward, and the room was small enough for her to place a hand on his right knee. A chill tingle rippled through him. "I wish a good healer had been near when this happened. It is too late now, I regret." "A dozen healers would not have been enough," he told her. "A half-man did it." "I know. What else does she know?" he wondered. Turning to pull his lone chair out from behind the table, he bit back an oath. He felt as if he had had a good night's sleep, and the pain was gone from his knee. His limp remained, but the joint was more limber than it had been since he was injured. "The woman didn't even ask if I wanted it. Burn me, what is she after?" He refused to flex the leg. If she would not ask, he would not acknowledge her gift. "An interesting day yesterday," she said as he sat down. "I'd not call Trollocs and half-men interesting," he said dryly. "I did not mean them. Earlier. The High Lord Carleon dead in a hunting accident. His good friend Tadosian apparently mistook him for a boar. Or perhaps a deer. I hadn't heard." He kept his voice calm. Even if she had found the note, she could not have traced it to him. Carleon himself would have thought it by his own hand. He did not think she could have, but he reminded himself again that she was Aes Sedai, as if he needed any reminding, with that smooth, pretty face across from him, those serene, dark eyes, watching him full of all his secrets. "The servants' quarters are full of gossip, but I seldom listen." "Do you not?" she murmured mildly. "Then you will not have heard that Tadosian fell ill. Not an hour after returning to the stone, directly after his wife gave him a goblet of wine to wash away the dust of the hunt. It is said he wept when he learned that she means to tend him herself and feed him with her own hands. No doubt tears of joy at her love. I hear she has vowed not to leave his side until he can rise again, or until he dies. She knew. How, he could not say, but she knew. But why was she revealing it to him? A tragedy, he said, matching her bland tone. Rand will need all the loyal High Lords he can find, I suppose. Carleon and Tadosian were hardly loyal, even to each other, it seems. They led the faction that want to kill Rand and try to forget he ever lived. Do you say so? I pay little attention to such things. The works of the mighty are not for a simple gleeman. Her smile was just short of laughter, but she spoke as if reading from a page. Tomdrill Merrilin, called the Grey Fox, once, by some who knew him or knew of him, court bard at the royal palace of Andor in Caemlyn. Morghase's lover for a time, after Taringale died. Fortunate for Morghase, Taringale's death. I do not suppose she ever learned he meant her to die and himself to be Andor's first king. But we were speaking of Tom Merrilin, a man who, it was said, could play the game of houses in his sleep. It is a shame that such a man calls himself a simple gleeman. But such arrogance to keep the same name. Tom masked his shock with an effort. How much did she know? Too much, if she knew not another word. But she was not the only one with knowledge. Speaking of names, he said levelly, it is remarkable how much can be puzzled out from a name. Moiraine Damodre, the Lady Moiraine of House Damodre in Caerhien, Taringale's youngest half-sister, King Laemon's niece, and Aes Sedai, let us not forget. And Aes Sedai aiding the dragon reborn, since before she could have known that he was more than just another poor fool who could channel. And Aes Sedai, with connections high in the White Tower, I would say, else she'd not risk what she has. Someone in the hall of the tower, more than one, I'd say it would have to be. News of that would shake the world. But why should there be trouble? Perhaps it's best to leave an old gleeman tucked away in his hole in the servants' quarters. Just an old gleeman playing his harp and telling his tales. Tales that harm no one. If he had managed to stagger her even a fraction, she did not show it. Speculation without facts is always dangerous, she said calmly. I do not use my house name by choice. House Damodre had a deservedly unpleasant reputation before Laman cut down Avender Aldera and lost the throne and his life for it. Since the Aiel War, it has grown worse, also deservedly. Would nothing shake the woman? What do you want of me? He demanded irritably. She did not as much as blink. Elaine and Nynaeve take ship for Tanchico today. A dangerous city, Tanchico. Your knowledge and skills might keep them alive. So that was it. She wanted to separate him from Rand, leave the boy naked to her manipulations. As you say, Tanchico is dangerous now, but then it always was. I wish the young women well, yet I've no wish to stick my head into a viper's nest. I am too old for that sort of thing. I've been thinking of taking up farming. A quiet life. Safe. A quiet life would kill you, I think. Sounding distinctly amused, she busied herself rearranging the folds of her skirt with small, slender hands. He had the impression she was hiding a smile. Tanchico will not, however. I guarantee that, and by the first oath, you know it for truth. He frowned at her, despite his best efforts to keep his face straight. She had said it, and she could not lie, yet how could she know? He was sure she could not foretell. He was certain he had heard her disavow the talent. But she had said it. Burn the woman. Why should I go to Tanchico? She could do without titles. To protect Elaine? Morghase's daughter? I have not seen Morghase in 15 years. Elaine was an infant when I left Caemlyn. She hesitated, but when she spoke, her voice was unrelentingly firm. And your reason for leaving Andor? A nephew named Owen, I believe. One of those poor fools you spoke of who can channel. The Red Sisters were supposed to bring him to Tar Valon, as any such man is, but instead they gentled him on the spot and abandoned him to the mercies of his neighbours. Tom knocked his chair over standing up, then had to hold on to the table because his knees were shaking. Owen had not lived long after being gentled, driven from his home by supposed friends who could not bear to let even a man who could no longer channel live among them. Nothing Tom did could stop Owen not wanting to live, or stop his young wife from following him to the grave inside the month. Why? He cleared his throat roughly, tried to make his voice less husky. Why are you telling me this? There was sympathy on Moiraine's face. And could it be regret? Surely not. Not from an Aes Sedai. The sympathy had to be false as well. I would not have done had you been willing to go simply to help Elaine and Nynaeve. Why burn you? Why, if you go with Elaine and Nynaeve, I will tell you the names of those Red Sisters when I see you next, as well as the name of the one who gave them their orders. They did not act on their own, and I will see you again. You will survive, Tarabon." He drew an uneven breath. "What good will their names do me?" he asked in a flat voice. Aes Sedai names, wrapped in all the power of the White Tower. "A skilled and dangerous player of the game of houses might find a use for them," she replied quietly. "They should not have done what they did. They should not have been excused for it. Will you leave me, please? I will teach you that not all Aes Sedai are like those Reds, Tom. You must learn that. Please?" He stood leaning on the table until she was gone, unwilling to let her see him sink awkwardly to his knees, see the tears trickling down his weathered face. Oh, light Owen. He had buried it all as deeply as he could. "I couldn't get there in time. I was too busy with the bloody game of houses." He scrubbed at his face testily. Moiraine could play the game with the best, wrenching him around this way, tugging every string he had thought perfectly hidden. Owen, Elaine, Morgaze's daughter. Only fondness remained for Morgaze, perhaps a little more than that, but it was hard to walk away from a child you had bounced on your knee. That girl in Tanchico? That city would eat her alive even without a war. It must be a pit of rabid wolves now, and Moiraine will give me the names. All he had to do was leave Rand in Aes Sedai hands, just as he had left Owen. She had him like a snake in a cleft stick, damned however he writhed. Burn the woman. Looping the embroidery basket's handle over her arm, Min gathered her skirts with her other hand and strode out of the dining hall after breakfast in a gliding pace, her back straight. She could have balanced a full goblet of wine on her head without spilling a drop. Partly that was because she could not take a proper stride in her dress, all pale blue silk with a snug bodice and sleeves and a full skirt that would drag its embroidered hem on the ground if she did not hold it up. It was also partly because she was sure she could feel Laris's eyes on her. A glance back proved her right. The mistress of the kitchens, a wine cask on legs, was beaming after her approvingly from the dining hall doorway. Who would have thought the woman had been a beauty in her youth, or would have a place in her heart for pretty, flirtatious girls? Lively, she called them. Who would have suspected she would decide to take Elmindrida under her stout wing? It was hardly a comfortable position. Laris kept a protective eye on Min, an eye that seemed to find her anywhere in the tower grounds. Min smiled back and patted her hair, now a round black cap of curls. Burn the woman. Doesn't she have something to cook, or some scullion to yell at? Laris waved to her, and she waved in return. She could not afford to offend someone who watched her so closely, not when she had no idea how many mistakes she might be making. Laris knew every trick of lively women, and expected to teach Min any she did not already know. One real mistake, Min reflected as she took a seat on a marble bench beneath a tall willow, had been the embroidery. Not from Laris's point of view, but her own. Pulling her embroidery hoop from the basket, she ruefully examined yesterday's work, a number of lopsided yellow oxys, and something she had meant to be a pale yellow rosebud, though no one would know unless she told them. With a sigh, she set to picking the stitches out. Line was right, she supposed. A woman could sit for hours with an embroidery hoop, watching everyone and everything, and nobody thought it strange. It would have helped, though, if she had any skill at all. At least it was a perfect morning for being out of doors. A golden sun had just cleared the horizon in a sky where the few fluffy white clouds seemed arrayed to emphasize the perfection. A light breeze caught the scent of roses and ruffled tall calmer bushes with their big red or white blossoms. Soon enough, the gravel-covered paths near the tree would be full of people on one errand or another, everyone from Aes Sedai to stablemen. A perfect morning, and a perfect place from which to watch, unobserved. Perhaps today she would have a useful viewing. Elmindrida, Min jumped, and stuck her pricked finger in her mouth. Twisting round on the bench, she prepared to assail Gawain for sneaking up on her, but the words froze in her throat. Gallard was with him. Taller than Gawain, with long legs, he moved with a dancer's grace and a lean, sinewy strength. His hands were long, too, elegant yet strong, and his face. He was, quite simply, the most beautiful man she had ever seen. Stop sucking your finger, Gawain said with a grin. We know you are a pretty little girl. You do not need to prove it to us. Blushing, she hastily pulled her hand down and barely restrained herself from a furious glare that would not have been at all in keeping with Elmindrada. He had needed no threats or commands from the amyrlin to keep her secret, only her asking, but he did take any opportunity to tease that presented itself. It is not right to mock, Gawain, Galad said. He did not mean to offend Mistress Elmindrada. Your pardon, but can it be we have met before? When you frowned at Gawain so fiercely just then, I almost thought I knew you. Min dropped her eyes demurely. Oh, I could never forget meeting you, my Lord Galad, she said in her best foolish girl voice. The simpering tone and anger at her own slip sent a tide of heat to her hairline, improving her disguise. She did not look anything like herself, and the dress and the hair were only a part of it. Liane had acquired creams and powders and an incredible assortment of mysterious scented things in the city, and drilled her until she could have used them in her sleep. She had cheekbones now, and more colour in her lips than nature had put there. A dark cream lining her eyelids and a fine powder that emphasized her lashes made her eyes seem larger. Not at all like herself. Some of the novices had told her admiringly how beautiful she was, and even a few Aes Sedai had called her a very pretty child. She hated it. The dress was quite pretty, she admitted, but she hated the rest of it. Yet there was no point in donning a disguise if she did not keep it up. I am sure you would remember, Gawain said dryly. I did not mean to interrupt you at your embroidery swallows, are they? Yellow swallows? Min thrust the hoop back into the basket. But I wanted to ask you to comment on this. He pushed a small, leather-bound book, old and tattered, into her hands, and suddenly his voice was serious. Tell my brother, this is nonsense. Perhaps he will listen to you. She examined the book. The Way of the Light, by Lothar Mantelar. Opening it, she read at random. Therefore abjure all pleasure, for goodness is a pure abstract, a perfect crystalline ideal which is obscured by base emotion. Pamper, not the flesh. Flesh is weak, but spirit is strong. Flesh is useless where spirit is strong. Right thought is drowned in sensation, and right action hindered by passions. Take all joy from rightness, and rightness only. It seemed to be dry nonsense. Min smiled at Gawain, and even managed to titter. So many words. I fear I know little of books, my Lord Gawain. I always mean to read one. I do, she sighed, but there is so little time. Why, just fixing my hair properly takes hours. Do you think it is pretty? The outraged startlement on his face nearly made her laugh, but she changed it to a giggle. It was a pleasure to turn the tables on him for a change. She would have to see if she could do it more often. There were possibilities in this disguise she had not considered. This stay in the tower had turned out to be all boredom and irritation. She deserved some amusement. Lothar Mantelar, Gawain said in a tight voice, founded the White Cloaks. The White Cloaks. He was a great man, Galad said firmly. A philosopher of noble ideals, if the children of the light have sometimes been excessive. Since his day, it does not change that. Oh my. White Cloaks, Min said breathlessly, and added a little shudder. They are such rough men, I hear. I cannot imagine a white cloak dancing. Do you think there is any chance of a dance here? Aes Sedai do not seem to care for dancing either, and I do so love to dance. The frustration in Gawain's eyes was delightful. I do not think so, Galad said, taking the book from her. Aes Sedai are too busy with their own affairs. If I hear of a suitable dance in the city, I will escort you, if you wish it. You need have no fear of being annoyed by those two louts. He smiled at her, unconscious of what he was doing, and she suddenly found herself breathless in truth. Men should not be allowed smiles like that. It actually took her a moment to remember what two louts he was talking about. The two men who had supposedly asked for Elmindrada's hand in marriage, nearly fighting each other because she could not make up her mind, pressing her to the point of seeking sanctuary in the tower because she could not stop encouraging them both. Just the entire excuse for her being there. It's this dress, she told herself. I could think straight if I had on my proper clothes. I've noticed the amyrlin speaks to you every day, Gawain said suddenly. Has she mentioned our sister Elaine? Or egwene Olver? Has she said anything of where they are? Min wished she could black his eye. He did not know why she was pretending to be someone else, of course, but he had agreed to help her be accepted as Elmindrida, and now he was linking her to women too many in the tower knew were friends of Min. "Oh, the Amyrlin seat is such a wonderful woman," she said sweetly, baring her teeth in a smile. "She always asks how I am passing the time, and compliments my dress. I suppose she hopes I'll make a decision soon between Darvan and Gomal, but I just cannot." She widened her eyes, hoping it made her look helpless and confused. "They are both so sweet." "Who did you say?" "Your sister, my Lord Gawain." "The daughter heir herself. I do not think I've ever heard the Amyrlin seat mention her." "What was the other name?" She could hear Gawain grinding his teeth. "We should not bother Mistress Elmindrida with that," Galad said. "It is our problem, Gawain. It is up to us to find the lie and deal with it." She barely heard him, because suddenly she was staring at a big man with long dark hair curling around slumped shoulders, wandering aimlessly down one of the gravelled paths through the trees under the watchful eyes of an accepted. She had seen Loghain before, a sad-faced, once hearty man, always with an accepted for companion. The woman was meant to keep him from killing himself, as much as to prevent his escape. Despite his size, he truly did not seem up to anything of the latter sort. But she had never before seen a flaring halo around his head, radiant in gold and blue. It was only there for a moment, but that was enough. Loghain had proclaimed himself the Dragon Reborn, had been captured and gentled. Whatever glory he might have had as a false dragon was far behind him now. All that remained for him was the despair of the gentled, like a man who had been robbed of sight and hearing and taste, wanting to die, waiting for the death that inevitably came to such men in a few years. He glanced at her, perhaps not seeing her. His eyes looked hopelessly inward. So why had he worn a halo that shouted of glory and power to come? This was something she had to tell the Amyrlin. "Poor fellow," Gawain muttered. "I cannot help pitying him. Light, it would be a mercy to let him end it." "Why did they make him keep on living? He deserves no pity," Galad pronounced. "Have you forgotten what he was, what he did? How many thousands died before he was taken? How many towns were burned? Let him live on as a warning to others." Gawain nodded, but reluctantly. "Yet men followed him. Some of those towns were burned after they declared for him." "I have to go," Min said, getting to her feet, and Galad was instantly all solicitude. "Forgive us, Mistress Elmindrida. We did not mean to frighten you. Loghain cannot harm you. I give you my assurance." "Aye. Yes, he's made me feel faint. Do excuse me. I really must go lie down." Gawain looked extremely skeptical, but he scooped up her basket before she could touch it. "Let me see you part of the way at least," he said, his voice oozing false concern. "This basket must be too heavy for you, dizzy as you are. I'd not want you to swoon." She wanted to snatch the basket and hit him with it, but that was not how Elmindrida would react. "Oh, thank you, my Lord Gawain. You are so kind." "You're kind." "No, no, my Lord Galad. Do not let me encumber both of you. Do sit down here and read your book. Do say you will. I just could not bear it otherwise." She even fluttered her eyelashes. Somehow she managed to ensconce Galad on the marble bench and get away, though with Gawain right beside her. Her skirts were an irritant. She wanted to pull them up to her knees and run, but Elmindrida would never run and never expose so much of her legs except when dancing. Laras had lectured her severely on that very point. One time running and she would nearly destroy the image of Elmindrida completely. And Gawain. "Ah, give me that basket, you muscle-brained cretin," she snarled as soon as they were out of Galad's sight, and pulled it away from him before he could comply. "What do you mean by asking me about Elaine and Egwene in front of him? Elmindrida never met them. Elmindrida does not care about them. Elmindrida doesn't want to be mentioned in the same sentence with them. Can't you understand that?" "No," he said. "Not since you won't explain, but I am sorry." There was hardly enough repentance in his voice to suit her. "It is just that I am worried." "Where are they?" "This news coming upriver about a false dragon in Tyr makes me no easier in my mind. They are out there somewhere, the light knows where, and I keep asking myself, what if they are in the middle of the sort of bonfire Loghain made out of Geldan? What if he isn't a false dragon?" she asked cautiously. "You mean because the stories in the streets say he's taken the Stone of Tyr? Rumour has a way of magnifying events." I will believe that when I see it, and in any case, it will take more to convince me. Even the stone could fall. Light. I don't really believe Elaine and Egwene are in Tyr, but the not knowing eats at my belly like acid. If she is hurt? Min did not know which she he meant, and suspected he did not either. In spite of his teasing, her heart went out to him, but there was nothing she could do. If you could only do as I say, and... I know. Trust the amyrlin. Trust. He exhaled a long breath. Do you know Galad has been drinking in the taverns with white cloaks? Anyone can cross the bridges if they come in peace, even children of the bloody light. Galad, she said incredulously. In taverns? Drinking? No more than a cup or two, I'm sure. He would not unbend more than that, not for his own name day. Gawain frowned, as if unsure whether that might be a criticism of Galad. The point is that he is talking with white cloaks. And now this book. According to the inscription, Eamon Valda himself gave it to him, in the hope you will find the way. Valda Min, the man commanding the white cloaks on the other side of the bridges. Not knowing is eating Galad up too. Listening to white cloaks. If anything happens to our sister, or to Egwene. He shook his head. Do you know where they are, Min? Would you tell me if you did? Why are you hiding? Because I drove 2 men mad with my beauty, and cannot make up my mind, she told him acidly. He gave a bitter half-laugh, then masked it with a grin. Well, that at least I can believe. He chuckled, and stroked under her chin with a finger. You are a very pretty girl, Elmindrida. A pretty, clever little girl. She doubled a fist and tried to punch him in the eye, but he danced back, and she stumbled over her skirts and nearly fell. You bloody ox of a thimble-brained man, she growled. Such grace of movement, Elmindrida, he laughed. Such a dulcet voice, as a nightingale or a cooing dove of the evening. What man would not grow starry-eyed at the sight of Elmindrida? The mirth slid away, and he faced her soberly. If you learn anything, please tell me. Please? I will beg on my knees, Min. I will tell you, she said, if I can. If it's safe for them. Light, but I hate this place. Why can't I just go back to Rand? She left Goyne there and entered the tower proper by herself, keeping an eye out for Aes Sedai or Accepted, who might question why she was above the ground floor and where she was going. The news of Loghain was too important to wait until the amyrlin encountered her, seemingly by accident, sometime in the late afternoon as usual. At least, that was what she told herself. Impatience threatened to pop out through her skin. She only saw a few Aes Sedai, turning a corner ahead of her or entering a room in the distance, which was all to the good. No one simply dropped in on the amyrlin seat. The handful of servants she passed, all bustling about their work, did not question her, of course, or even look at her twice, except to drop quick curtsies almost without pausing. Pushing open the door to the amyrlin's study, she had a simpering tale ready, in case anyone was with Lean, but the antechamber was empty. She hurried to the inner door and put her head in. The amyrlin and the keeper were seated on either side of Siuan's table, which was littered with small strips of thin paper. Their heads swiveled toward her sharply, a stare like 4 nails. What are you doing here? The amyrlin snapped. You are supposed to be a silly girl, claiming sanctuary, not a friend of my childhood. There is to be no contact between us except the most casual, in passing. If necessary, I'll name Laras to watch over you like a nurse over a child. She would enjoy that, I think, but I doubt you would. Min shivered at the thought. Suddenly Loghain did not seem so urgent. It was hardly likely he could achieve any glory in the next few days. He was not really why she had come, though, only an excuse, and she would not turn back now. Closing the door behind her, she stammered out what she had seen and what it meant. She still felt uncomfortable doing so in front of Lean. Siuan shook her head wearily. Another thing to worry about. Starvation in Cairhien. A sister missing in Tarabon. Trolloc raids increasing in the borderlands again. This fool who calls himself the Prophet, stirring up riots in Gaeldan. He's apparently preaching that the dragon has been reborn as a Shienaran lord, she said incredulously. Even the small things are bad. The war in Arad Doman has stopped trade from Saudea, and the pinch is making unrest in Maradon. Tenobia may even be forced off the throne by it. The only good news I've heard is that the blight has retreated for some reason. 2 miles or more of green beyond the border stones, without a hint of corruption or pestilence, all the way from Saldea to Shinar. The first time in memory it has done that. But I suppose good news has to be balanced by bad. When a boat has one leak, it is sure to have others. I only wish it was a balance. Lyn, have the watch on Loghain increased. I can't see what trouble he could cause now, but I do not want to find out. She turned those piercing blue eyes on Min. Why did you come flapping up here with this like a startled gull? Loghain could have waited. The man is hardly likely to find power and glory before sunset. The near echo of her own thoughts made Min shift uncomfortably. I know, she said. Lyn's eyebrows rose warningly, and she added a hasty, "Mother." The keeper nodded approvingly. That does not tell me why, child, Siuan said. Min steeled herself. Yeah, Mother, nothing I viewed since the first day has been very important. I certainly have not seen anything that points to the Black Ajah. That name still gave her a chill. I've told you everything I know about whatever disaster you Aes Sedai are going to face, and the rest of it is just useless. She had to stop and swallow with that penetrating gaze on her. Mother, there is no reason I should not go. There's reason I should. Perhaps Rand could make real use of what I can do. If he has taken the stone, Mother, he may need me. At least I need him burn me for a fool. The keeper shuddered openly at the mention of Rand's name. Siuan, on the other hand, snorted loudly. Your viewings have been very useful. It's important to know about Loghain. You found the groom who was stealing before suspicion could land on anyone else, and that fire-haired novice who was going to get herself with child. Ah, Sheriam cut that short. The girl would even think of men until she's finished her training. But we'd not have known until it was too late, without you. No, you cannot go. You cannot go. Sooner or later, your viewings will draw me a chart to the Black Ajah, and until they do, they still more than pay their passage. Min sighed, and not only because the amyrlin meant to hold on to her. The last time she had seen that red-headed novice, the girl had been sneaking off to a wooded part of the grounds with a muscular guard. They would be married, maybe before the end of summer. Min had known that as soon as she saw them together, though the tower never let a novice leave until the tower was ready, even one who could not go any further in her training. There was a farm in that pair's future, and a swarm of children, but it was pointless to tell the amyrlin that. Could you at least let Gawain and Galad know that egwene and their sister are all right, Mother? Asking irked her, and her tone of voice did too. A child denied a slice of cake, begging for a cookie instead. At least tell them something besides that ridiculous tale about doing penance on a farm. I have told you that is none of your concern. Do not make me tell you again. They don't believe it any more than I do. Min got out before the amyrlin's dry smile quieted her. It was not an amused smile. So you suggest I change where they are supposed to be, after letting everyone think them on a farm? Do you suppose that might raise a few eyebrows? Everyone but those boys accepts it. And you, well, Kulan Gaidin will just have to work them that much harder. Sore muscles and enough sweat will take most men's minds off other troubles. Women's minds too. You ask many more questions, and I'll see what a few days scrubbing pots will do for you. Better to lose your services for 2 or 3 days than have you poking your nose where it does not belong. You don't even know if they are in trouble, do you? Or Moiraine. It was not Moiraine she meant. Girl, Lynaine said warningly, but Min was not to be stopped now. Why haven't we heard? Rumors reached here 2 days ago. 2 days. Why doesn't one of those slips on your desk contain a message from her? Doesn't she have pigeons? I thought you, Aes Sedai, had people with messenger pigeons everywhere. If there isn't one in Tyr, there should be. A man on horseback could have reached Tar Valon before now. Why? The flat crack of Siuan's palm on the table cut her off. You obey remarkably well, she said wryly. Child, until we hear something to the contrary, assume the young man is well. Pray that he is. Lynaine shivered again. There's a saying in the mall, child, the amyrlin went on. Do not trouble till trouble troubles you. Mark it well, child. There was a timid knock at the door. The amyrlin and the keeper exchanged glances. Then 2 sets of eyes shifted to Min. Her presence was a problem. There was certainly nowhere to hide. Even the balcony was clearly visible from the room in its entirety. "A reason for you to be here," Siuan muttered. "That doesn't make you any more than the fool girl you're supposed to be. Nynaeve, stand ready at the door." She and the keeper were on their feet together, Siuan coming around the table while Nynaeve moved to the door. "Take Lean's seat, girl. Move your feet, child. Move your feet. Now look sulky. Not angry, sulky. Stick your lower lip out and stare at the floor. I may make you wear ribbons in your hair, huge red bows. That's it. Lean." The amyrlin put her fists on her hips and raised her voice. "And if you ever walk in on me unannounced again, child, I will." Lean pulled the door open to reveal a dark novice who flinched at Siuan's continuing tirade, then dropped a deep curtsy. "Messages for the amyrlin, Aes Sedai," the girl squeaked. 2 pigeons arrived at the loft. She was one of those who had told Min she was beautiful, and she tried to stare past the keeper with wide eyes. "This does not concern you, child," Lean said briskly, taking the tiny cylinders of bone out of the girl's hand. "Back to the loft with you." Before the novice finished rising, Lean shut the door, then leaned against it with a sigh. "I've jumped at every unexpected sound since you told me." Straightening, she came back to the table. 2 more messages, Mother." "Shall I?" Yes. "Open them," the amyrlin said. "No doubt Morghese has decided to invade Kehen after all. Or Trollocs have overrun the borderlands. It would be of a piece with everything else." Min kept her seat. Siuan had sounded all too realistic with some of those threats. Lean examined the red wax seal on the end of one of the small cylinders, no larger than her own finger joint, then broke it open with a thumbnail when she was satisfied it had not been tampered with. The rolled paper inside she extracted with a slim ivory pick. "Nearly as bad as Trollocs, Mother," she said, almost as soon as she began reading. "Musrim Taim has escaped." "Light!" Siuan barked. "How?" "This only says he was taken away by stealth in the night, Mother. 2 sisters are dead. The light illumined their souls, but we've little time to mourn the dead while the likes of Taim are alive and ungentled." "Where, Lean?" "Denhua, Mother. A village east of the Black Hills on the Maradon Road, above the headwaters of the Amteo and the Luan. It had to be some of his followers. Fools. Why won't they know when they are beaten? Choose out a dozen reliable sisters, Lean." The amyrlin grimaced. "Reliable," she muttered. "If I knew who was more reliable than a silverpike, I'd not have the problems I do. Do the best you can, Lean. A dozen sisters. And 500 of the guards." "No, a full 1,000. "Mother," the keeper said worriedly. "The white cloaks would not try to cross the bridges if I left them unwatched entirely. They would be afraid of a trap. There is no telling what is going on up there, Lean. I want whoever I send to be ready for anything. And Lean, Mazran Taim is to be gentled as soon as he is taken again." Lena's eyes opened wide with shock. "The law. I know the law as well as you, but I will not risk having him freed again ungentled. I'll not risk another Guaya Amalasan, not on top of everything else." "Yes, Mother," Lean said faintly. The amyrlin picked up the second bone cylinder and snapped it in 2 with a sharp crack to get the message out. "Good news at last," she breathed, a smile blooming on her face. "Good news. The sling has been used. The shepherd holds the sword." "Rand?" Min asked, and Siuan nodded. "Of course, girl. The stone has fallen. Randall Thor, the shepherd, has Kalendor. Now I can move. Lean, I want the Hall of the Tower convened this afternoon." "No, this morning." "I don't understand," Min said. "You knew the rumors were about Rand. Why are you calling the hall now? What can you do that you could not before?" Siuan laughed like a girl. "What I can do now is tell them right out that I have received word from an Aes Sedai that the Stone of Tyr has fallen and a man has drawn Kalendor. Prophecy fulfilled. Enough of it for my purpose, at least. The dragon is reborn. They'll flinch, they'll argue, but none can oppose my pronouncement that the tower must guide this man. At last I can involve myself with him openly. Openly for the most part. Are we doing the right thing, Mother?" Lean said abruptly. I know. If he has Calendar, he must be the dragon reborn, but he can channel, Mother. A man who can channel. I only saw him once, but even then there was something strange about him. Something more than being tarmongaidon. Mother, is he so very different from Taim when it comes down to it? The difference is that he is the dragon reborn, daughter, the amyrlin said quietly. Taim is a wolf, and maybe rabid. Ramd Thor is the wolfhound we will use to defeat the shadow. Keep his name to yourself, Lean. Best not to reveal too much, too soon. As you say, Mother, the keeper said, but she still sounded uneasy. Off with you now. I want the hall assembled in an hour. Xuan thoughtfully watched the taller woman go. There may be more resistance than I would wish, she said, when the door clicked shut. Min looked at her sharply. You don't mean? Oh, nothing serious, child. Not as long as they don't know how long I have been involved with the All-Thor boy. She looked at the slip of paper again, then dropped it onto the table. I could wish Moiraine had told me more. Why didn't she say more? And why have we not heard from her before this? More questions with you. That one you must ask Moiraine. She has always gone her own way. Ask Moiraine, child. Sarah Coventry worked the hoe in desultory fashion, frowning at the tiny sprouts of threadleaf and hensfoot poking up in the rows of cabbages and beets. It was not that Mistress Elwood was a harsh taskmistress. She was no more stern than Sarah's mother, and certainly easier than Cheriam. But Sarah had not gone to the White Tower to end up back on a farm hoeing vegetables with the sun barely up. Her white novice dresses were packed away. She wore brown wool her mother might have sewn, the skirt tied up to her knees to keep it out of the dirt. It was all so unfair. She had not done anything. Wriggling her bare toes in the turned soil, she glared at a stubborn hen's foot and channeled, meaning to burn it out of the ground. Sparks flashed around the leafy sprout, and it wilted. Hurriedly she sliced the thing out of the dirt and her mind. If there was any fairness in the world, Lord Galad would come to the farm while out hunting. Leaning on the hoe, she lost herself in a daydream of healing Galad's injuries received in a fall from his horse. Not his fault, of course. He was a wonderful horseman, and him lifting her up in front of him on his saddle, declaring he would be her warder. She would be Green Ajah, of course, and... Sarah Coventry. Sarah jumped at the sharp voice, but it was not Mistress Elwood. She curtsied as best she could, with her skirts gathered up. The day's greeting, Aes Sedai. Have you come to take me back to the tower? The Aes Sedai moved closer, not caring that her skirts dragged through the dirt of the vegetable patch. Despite the summer warmth of the morning, she wore a cloak, the hood pulled up to shadow her face. Just before you left the tower, you took a woman to the amyrlin seat, a woman calling herself Elmindrada. Yes, Aes Sedai, Sarah said, a slight question in her voice. She did not like the way the Aes Sedai had said that, as if she had left the tower for good. Tell me everything that you heard or saw, girl, from the moment you took the woman in charge. Everything. But I heard nothing, Aes Sedai. The keeper sent me away as soon as... Pain racked her, digging her toes into the dirt, arching her back. The spasm lasted only moments, but it seemed eternal. Struggling for breath, she realized her cheek was pressed to the ground, and her still trembling fingers dug into the soil. She did not remember falling. She could see Mistress Elwood's laundry basket, lying on its side near the stone farmhouse, damp linens spilled out in a heap. Dazed, she thought that was odd. Maria Elwood would never leave her washing lying like that. Everything, girl, the Aes Sedai said coldly. She was standing over Sarah now, making no move to help her. She had hurt her. It was not supposed to be that way. Every person this Elmindrada spoke to, every word she said, every nuance and expression. She spoke to Lord Gawain, Aes Sedai. Sakra sobbed into the earth. That is all I know, Aes Sedai. All. She began to weep in earnest, sure that was not enough to satisfy this woman. She was right. She did not stop screaming for a long time, and when the Aes Sedai left, there was not a sound around the farmhouse except for the chickens, not even breathing. Chapter 18. Into the Ways. Buttoning up his coat, Perrin paused, looking at the axe, still secured on the wall as he had left it since drawing it out of the door. He did not like the idea of carrying the weapon again, but he untied the belt from the peg and buckled it around his waist anyway. The hammer he tied to his already stuffed saddlebags. Draping saddlebags and blanket roll over his shoulder, he gathered a filled quiver and his unstrung longbow from the corner. The rising sun poured heat and light through the narrow windows. The rumpled bed was the only proof that anyone had stayed here. Already the room had lost the feel of him. It even seemed to smell empty, despite his own scent on the sheets. He never stayed anywhere long enough to make that feel cling past his readiness to leave. Never long enough to put down roots, make it any kind of home. Well, I'm going home now. Turning his back on the already unoccupied room, he went out. Gaul rose easily from where he had been squatting against the wall beneath a tapestry of men on horseback hunting lions. He bore all of his weapons, with 2 leather water bottles and a rolled blanket, and a small cookpot was strapped beside the worked leather bow case on his back. He was alone. The others? Perrin asked, and Gaul shook his head. Too long away from the threefold land. I warned you of that, Perrin. These lands of yours are too wet. The air is like breathing water. There are too many people, too close together. They have seen more than they want of strange places. I understand, Perrin said, though what he understood was that there would be no rescue after all, no company of aiel to drive the White Cloaks out of the 2 rivers. He kept his disappointment inside. It was sharp after thinking he had escaped his fate, but he could not say he had not prepared himself for the alternative. No point in crying when the iron split, you just reforged it. Did you have any trouble doing what I asked? None. I told one tyran to take each thing you want to the Dragonwall Gate stable and tell no one of it. They will have seen one another there, but they will think the things are for me, and they will keep silent. The Dragonwall Gate. You would think the spine of the world was just over the horizon, instead of 100 leagues or more off. The aiel hesitated. The girl and the ajah make no secret of their preparations, Perrin. She's been trying to find the Gleeman and telling everyone she means to travel the ways. Scratching his beard, Perrin breathed heavily, close to a growl. If she gives me away to Moiraine, I vow she'll not sit down for a week. She is very handy with those knives, Gaul said in a neutral tone. Not handy enough. Not if she's given me away. Perrin hesitated. No company of aiel. The gallows still waited. Gaul, if anything happens to me, if I give you the word, take Fail away. She might not want to go, but take her anyway. See her safely out of the 2 rivers. Would you promise me that? I will do what I can, Perrin. For the blood debt I owe you, I will. Gaul sounded doubtful, but Perrin did not think Fail's knives would be enough to stop him. They took back passages as much as possible, and narrow stairs meant to carry servants unobtrusively. Perrin thought it too bad the tyrans had not given servants their own corridors as well. Still, they saw few people even in the broad hallways with their gilded lampstands and ornate hangings, and no nobles at all. He commented on the absence and